In the heart of Qing City's neon-drenched underground black market, a hooded young man moved through the crowded alleys, his eyes cautiously scanning the shadows before stepping into a dimly lit shop. Inside, he approached the owner with a chilling proposal. He wanted to sell a kidney and a cornea, totaling 27,500 yuan. The owner, pen in hand, hesitated as he marked the items. "Are you serious?" he asked, frowning. "In the past 6 months, you've already sold a kidney, your spleen, gallbladder, part of your liver, a third of it again, and chunks of your intestines. If you sell another kidney, you'll die in less than 2 days." Lying on a blood-stained stretcher, the young man, Ye Lin, remained calm. His voice was steady as he muttered, "It's fine. To save my sister, any sacrifice is worth it." The shopkeeper sighed and gave up trying to talk him out of it. Without a second thought, he raised a butcher's knife high above his head. A sickening scream echoed through the shop moments later. Not long after, the so-called dead man walked out, bandages covering his eyes and a wooden stick in hand. Once he was sure no one was tailing him, he unwrapped the bandage and used his regeneration ability to heal his wounds. Pulling out a wad of cash, the payment for his kidney and cornea, he smirked. Between this and his savings, he now had enough to afford the job transfer ritual. He couldn't help but laugh. The whole dying sister story? A complete lie. He was amazed anyone believed it. His name was Ye Lin, a transmigrator and textbook orphan. In truth, he had no sister to save. This world he had landed in was bursting with spiritual energy and swarming with beasts, demons, and dungeon realms. Life here was brutal, especially for orphans like him. That was until he discovered his unique talent, rapid body regeneration. No matter the injury, even lost organs would grow back within minutes. And so, he'd spent the last several months butchering his own body to raise 100,000 yuan for one reason: the class transfer ritual. Only by undergoing the ritual and awakening a powerful profession could he hope to survive this savage world. Today was the day. When he arrived at the class transfer site, a group of 3 students noticed him. One of them stepped forward and asked why he was there. Everyone knew Ye Lin as a poor student. They couldn't imagine how he could afford the ritual. Without missing a beat, Ye Lin took the hand of the girl in the group, Miss Wang, and spoke with feigned emotion. "Miss Wang, I had no choice. I took out a class transfer loan. Naturally, it was a lie, but he needed to keep up appearances." Miss Wang was shocked, and the 2 male students with her looked uneasy. They pitied Ye Lin, fearing he'd spend the rest of his life repaying the loan if he ended up with a useless class. Still, Miss Wang allowed him to enter, wishing him luck before the ritual began. Inside, the principal began calling students up one by one. First was Gao Dayu from Class 5. Murmurs spread. He wasn't from a wealthy family either. When he placed his hand on the golden orb, the principal declared his profession: an A-rank poultry breeder, a support class. The students laughed, but the principal reassured Gao Dayu that no class was useless, only people could be. Then came a stunning girl in a tight red dress and leather boots, Zuganini. She captivated everyone as she stepped up confidently. As she placed her hand on the orb, a phoenix erupted into the air. The principal announced her class with astonishment: an SSS-ranked fire mage. The students were in awe, and even Ye Lin couldn't help but admire her. An SSS fire mage was a force capable of wiping out entire armies. After her class transfer, Zuganini was informed that special training would be arranged for her, and she stepped down proudly. Ye Lin's name was called next. As he walked to the stage, he heard whispers about his so-called loan. He glanced briefly at Zuganini. He wasn't going to live in anyone's shadow. He placed his hands on the golden orb, heart pounding. Then, a massive azure dragon emerged. A blue light engulfed his body as the crowd gasped. Even Zuganini looked impressed. The principal announced Ye Lin's class: an SSS-ranked Forbidden Cursemaster. At first, the principal celebrated, but then his smile froze. Forbidden Cursemaster? His expression darkened. The crowd erupted into laughter. The truth of Ye Lin's class settled in. Anyone with that profession rarely lived past 25. Every skill used consumed life force, leading to early death. Zuganini sighed in disappointment and walked away. Ye Lin, ever the performer, feigned sorrow. So convincing was his act that the principal patted him on the back with sympathy. "Don't be too negative," the principal told him. "Better to burn brightly than fade meaninglessly." Ye Lin smiled and replied with a fiery resolve, "Then I'll burn like the sun." The principal promised special training for him alongside Zuganini. Ye Lin accepted, inwardly amused. After all, the risk of death didn't apply to him. He was practically immortal. As the ceremony ended, students returned home. Ye Lin headed back too, exhausted and eager for rest. But along the way, a voice called out. It was Zuganini. She offered to team up, explaining that fighting alone would hasten his death. Her concern sounded sincere. However, Ye Lin refused to accept the offer. Zuganini didn't force him at all. She simply walked away, stating that Ye Lin was such a stubborn idiot heading for death. Ye Lin ignored her and continued walking. But then, another group of students blocked his way and told him that he really thought he had risen up just because he had switched to being a curse master. These guys were Ye Lin's classmates, and they were mad because they could not accept Zuganini's earlier offer to team up with him. Ye Lin was annoyed. Women really were troublesome. Because of just 2 lines from Zuganini, these idiots were now looking for trouble. He replied that he was on his way back home. The guys laughed at Ye Lin's expense. One of them mocked him, asking if the poor student was referring to his 10-square-meter shack as a home. Another student, the leader of the group, said arrogantly that now that Ye Lin was SSS ranked, he should call him daddy, and he'd get Ye Lin a security job at G Corporation. The others laughed and added that being a G Corp security guard was a privilege. He also ordered Ye Lin to kneel before their young master. Once Ye Lin accepted the offer and got paid, he could buy some nice incense for his dead orphanage family. The 3 continued to tease Ye Lin, even going so far as to say that he was just an orphan who didn't deserve to have a family. Ye Lin was already mad, and as he stared at them with a serious look, his eyes flamed with a blue and red aura as he activated a curse magic power. He told the idiots that they were the ones who forced his hand. The 3 were confused at Ye Lin's willingness to use curse magic, knowing full well the implications. They questioned what he was trying to do. Was he really going to use curse magic and shorten his lifespan? Why wouldn't I? Ye Lin also questioned with a puzzled look. Didn't you fools speak of my dead family? Conjuring a slight lightning strike, Ye Lin's attack was only meant to scare them. The guys, now scared shitless of Ye Lin, pleaded with him, saying there was no need for their classmate to use a forbidden curse on them. But Ye Lin simply stretched out his hand and challenged the idiots to come at him if they dared. However, they decided to run away in fear. Ye Lin then deactivated his curse ability and uttered, "What a bunch of trash." They actually ran off with just 1 move. As he continued to walk, he felt like his duodenum was scorched. He wasn't aware that Zuganini had witnessed the commotion. She was annoyed that he was getting provoked by a few insults and was ready to throw his life away. She was sure that even if someone acted like Ye Lin, who wasn't a curse user, they would definitely not go far. For her, Ye Lin wasn't worthy of standing beside her. The night came, and Ye Lin was already at his home. Ye Lin placed his bag down on the couch and sat while checking his system interface. Apparently, sacrificing a piece of duodenum would summon a regular lightning bolt. But sacrificing a bladder would summon in thunder from burial waters. Next, sacrificing a heart could summon destruction, purple lightning. If that was the case, Ye Lin concluded he would die summoning the most powerful chaos god thunder. He lay down on his couch when he felt his head spinning, but he was aware that it was the side effects of his body recovery. At the same time, Ji Lingyu went to his father and asked to avenge him. He wanted his dad to send someone to take Ye Lin out. However, his father reminded him that killing an SSS-ranked curse user was very risky, and there was no benefit in it for them. He was aware that someone who goes all out using forbidden spells, just because of a few insults, was clearly emotionally unstable. He snuffed out his cigarette on the ashtray and told his son not to forget that Ye Lin was from a poor background. He wanted his son to learn how to use his greatest advantage to target the enemy's weakest spot. Early the next day, Ye Lin went to the Qingqing Academy. He kept yawning due to a lack of a well-deserved sleep. The students around started murmuring about what he'd done the day before, when suddenly, someone tapped Ye Lin on the shoulder with a bottle. It was none other than Ye Lin. Inside the bottle was milk he brought as a peace offering. He also brought breakfast for Ye Lin. Ye Lin was clueless as to why, but accepts the milk regardless. At first, he thought Ye Lin was trying to poison him just because he couldn't beat him. But the poor guy replied that he wouldn't dare. It was just his way of thanking him. "Thank me?" Ye Lin questioned with a skeptical look. "Yeah," Ye Lin replied with a forced smile. Ye Lin drank the milk and told Ye Lin to just say what he wants. Unexpectedly, Ye Lin stated that he was grateful that Ye Lin struck him like a bolt of lightning. Apparently, that lightning strike was Ye Lin's wake-up call. He also added that Ye Lin's appearance made him realize that he's been wasting his life in a daze. Ye Lin called Ye Lin on his bullshit and again told the idiot to say what he really wants. Ye Lin suddenly kneeled and stated that he wants to call Ye Lin Big Brother. Ye Lin was shocked and questioned him if he happened to hit him in the head. But Ye Lin replied that he was serious and that the beating he received the day before made him reflect on himself. He deeply reflected and wants to become a better person, but he needs a great role model. Ye Lin agreed to be his role model, but there need to be some tuition payment. Surprising enough, Ye Lin didn't refuse and immediately asked for Ye Lin's account number. Ye Lin headed to the field as he gave his account number. He told Ye Lin to transfer 2 million as a first-term tuition payment. When Ye Lin asked if it was too expensive, Ye Lin reassured him that it was not. He will inform his dad to send it right away. At this time, a novice secret realm opened on the field as a test for the students. The principal hopes all the candidates from each academy could perform well. Of course, everyone was wishing for their victory. Ye Lin and Juganini were in the front, so the old men beside the principal believed both students were from Ching High School who got the SSS class profession for this year. For them, both looked extraordinary. The principal was annoyed, stating that he had already told Ye Lin and Juganini to keep a low profile. But these kids really don't know how to behave. 2 of them ended up getting SSS class jobs at once, and it seems to be just infuriating. Absolutely infuriating, isn't it? He then laughed and turned to face the rest, questioning why they weren't saying anything. Were they all born mute or something? The 3 old guys walked away, saying they still had some things to do. As you might have guessed, it turns out they were annoyed by the principal for being full of himself and rubbing their faces in. Anyway, the moment entering the novice secret realm was issued. The examinees began to swamp the entrance like a tidal wave. Before Ye Lin could enter, Juganini asked him once again to team up with her. Still, Ye Lin refused, which made her think he was very arrogant. Since he was so eager to die, she won't stop him. Ye Lin ignored her and immediately entered the secret realm. As he landed, he noticed he was alone. No one was around, so he thought it was a random teleportation. A level 1 leopard cat then appeared. It roared, but Ye Lin wasn't scared at all, but rather excited. He believed it was a perfect enemy to test his forbidden spell. He then attacked it and instantly killed it without any struggle. Ye Lin was awarded 10 experience points, but he was disappointed, deeming it too little for him. He walked away while stating that it doesn't even justify the damage to his kidneys and that he has to kill 100 of these leopard cat just to reach level 2, which is why he decided to figure something out. A while later, Ye Lin let 100 kinds of monsters chase him. As he ran, he couldn't stop smiling, believing this wave of monsters should be enough to give him a good amount of experience points. Some of these monsters have a human half-body. He stops running and turned to look at them, stating his desire to test his newly learned forbidden curse. He then cast his destructive surge. The curse was so terrifying that it increased Ye Lin's strength, agility, and spirit twofold. With burning reincarnation activated, he believes that even a level 10 monster probably couldn't withstand his full-powered world-ending thunderstrike. He then attacked some of the monsters, slashing them without any hesitation. He noticed he aged in just 5 minutes of using the skill, so he decided to stop using the burning reincarnation forbidden curse after about 1 minute at most, if he didn't want to reveal his undying body. He continued by using his vitality preservation. He sacrificed his left arm and tapped the ground as he activated his world-ending Fury Forbidden Curse. He killed a level 3 Gray Wolf and was rewarded with 30 experience points. Then a level 5 Two-Headed Snake and received 50 experience points. A level 6 Armored Scorpion and gained 60 experience points each for the 6th Centaur. And finally, a level 2 Killed Bee and gained 20 experience points. With that, he leveled up to level 3. He was satisfied and amazed with this development. He also learned a new Forbidden Curse, which was a Hellfire Scorches the Sky. An hour later, Zuganini encountered the area where Ye Lin had killed all those monsters. She was shocked when she saw so many monsters incinerated to ash. She was in disbelief, wondering what had just happened. Then, she noticed a hellfire. Confused, she checked it out regardless, since she didn't know anyone who had the fire element in Qing besides her. But now, there was such an intense fire element fluctuation. Also, the fire element wave might be even stronger than hers. She then saw something that gave her a hint that this commotion was surely caused by a human. Looks like Qing is full of hidden dragons. Izuganini will definitely find out who you are, she vowed with determination. But at this moment nearby, Ye Lin was spending some time roasting some meat to eat. He was enjoying a three-eyed demon pig meat. He realized he was eating more than his usual since his body used up too much energy earlier. After eating, he then decided to head to a farther area and grind some more. When he was about to leave, Zuganini suddenly appeared and called him. "Ye Lin, what are you doing here?" she asked. Ye Lin was annoyed that he'd ran into her. It was a hassle for him, as he didn't want anyone to find out his secret. He smiled at her and replied that he was just casually roasting something to eat. Zuganini then told him once more that a Forbidden Curse Masterclass was totally not suited for solo grinding. Ye Lin was annoyed when Zuganini walked away, telling him it is too late for regrets now, and following her won't help him anymore. She really assumed Ye Lin was tagging along with her, so she told him she didn't have time to team up with him anymore. Ye Lin was thinking Zuganini might be missing a few brain cells. Zuganini, on the other hand, looked back at him and asked him if he had seen anyone else pass the area, and she stated that that person is extremely powerful, very skilled with fire element manipulation, and likely mastered Hellfire. Hellfire? Yeah, I saw him. He was a very handsome guy. He went that way. Ye Lin replied calmly. He knew he could not let Zuganini cling to him, so he decided not to use the Hellfire spell anymore going forward. As Zuganini continued walking, she blamed Ye Lin for wasting her time. Otherwise, she would have found the Hellfire user by now. She noticed a shadow looming above her, but when she raised her head, she was shocked to see a level 8 Dragonblood behemoth. She dodged when it tried to attack her. Zuganini was puzzled as to why a level 8 monster would appear in the area she was. She looked behind her, deducing that Ye Lin might have run away far by now. She then attacked the monster with her Fireball Storm. However, it didn't deal much damage, not enough to kill the monster. The monster looked at her with anger. It charged toward her at a fast speed and bumped her, trashing her away. Oh man, for a second I really thought I was about to see the heavens. But yeah, turns out I've got zero luck. But anyway, back to the story. She fights back with her flame, but the monster roared, blowing the flame back at her. Zuganini was dumbfounded as all the flames hit her. The monster stood there as the smoke settles. When it eventually did, Zuganini was on the ground with her clothes ripped, trembling in pain. She admitted that she was too arrogant to believe that she can definitely defeat a level 8 Dragonblood behemoth in this secret realm. She was afraid she would die at the hands of a level 8 monster, knowing it would be a humiliating death. Lucky for her, someone intervened and attacked the monster using a Forbidden Curse Hellfire. The poor monster was literally burned to ash. As expected, Zuganini was shocked, knowing this Hellfire user was the one she was searching for. Turning to face her savior, Zuganini thanked this mysterious person and wanted to know his name. The questionable masked individual was none other than Ye Lin. Ye Lin was standing on a tree branch with a mask. He told Zuganini to call him Ling Yi, which meant early dawn and night. Ling for early dawn, Yi for night. Placing a finger on her lips, Zuganini acted all pitiful and curious. asking the mysterious Ling which school he was from. Although she was grateful to her savior, she also wanted to know who exactly was underneath that mask. So she concealed her intentions by stating she simply wanted to thank Ye Lin properly when they exit the dungeon. Ye Lin just stared at her like she was an idiot. He didn't need her fucking thanks. He told Zuganini that there was no need to thank him. It was just a small effort after all. Anyway, the moment Ye Lin was about to bounce, Zuganini pleaded for him to wait. She tried to get on her feet, but Ye Lin told her not to follow him. There were even stronger monsters ahead, and it was definitely not a place for someone of her strength to step into. Also, she might want to put her clothes back on properly before anything else. This sudden realization drew Zuganini's attention to the current state of her outfit. She blushed hard, immediately laying on the ground in a desperate attempt to cover herself, wishing the earth could just swallow her whole. When she finally raised her head, she realized the mysterious Ling was gone. Zuganini shouted his name with resolve, vowing to catch up to him one day. She would stand proudly by his side. Ye Lin, on the other hand, had already leapt far ahead, moving seamlessly from one tree branch to the next. After putting enough distance between them, he figured what just happened should be enough to stop Zuganini from clinging to him anymore. He'd already wasted too much time, and he needed to hurry and level up. Opening his status window, Ye Lin noticed something new, a forbidden curse named Undying. It required sacrificing 2.5 years of lifespan to negate one fatal injury. Seriously, what the hell? The Forbidden Spellcaster class really was the definition of short-lived, constantly screwing with a person's life expectancy. But this skill, this was practically a bonus. With this forbidden curse, Ye Lin could survive even a fatal blow. It meant that even if someone stabbed him in the heart from behind, he wouldn't go down. What's more, this also meant he could now use other forbidden curses that required sacrificing his heart or even his freaking head once. This was just too good to be true. Now, he could grind recklessly without restraint. No one could stop his leveling pace. 3 days passed. It was the final day of the test. The old guys had gathered at the entrance of the novice secret realm. The principal of Qingchong Academy greeted his old colleagues with his usual condescending smile. The short-haired man among them, Principal Su, scoffed and asked what he was showing off for. So what if he had 2 SSS-rank job changers? Exactly, another principal chimed in. Level can matter more than class rank. The red-haired one nodded, reminding everyone that the highest record for Qingchong's secret realm test was level 11, and it hadn't been broken in years. Then, turning to Principal Su, he remarked that, if memory served, the student who set that record was from Su's Yutsai Academy. Principal Su nodded. "You're right," he said, then added with a smirk, "I wonder if someone will break the record this year." The principal of Qingchong Academy responded, "We'll see. I believe my student can surprise everyone." Just then, an unexpected figure stepped onto the scene and greeted the principals politely. It was Zhuge Qinxing, Zuganini's father. Principal Su was surprised. "It's been a long time. An honor," added the Qingchong principal. After all, Zhuge Qinxing was their school's astrologer. With pleasantries exchanged, Zhuge Qinxing got straight to the point. He asked about his daughter and whether she had caused any trouble for the principal. Seeing how much Qinxing doted on his daughter, the principal replied calmly, "No, not at all. Zhuganini is the pride of our Chongqing Academy." But right then, someone emerged from the dungeon. The test timer wasn't over yet, so this early appearance could only mean one thing: injury. To their surprise, the one who stepped out was none other than Zuganini herself. She greeted the principals politely, then did a double take when she saw her father. Zhuge Qinxing immediately asked why she came out early, while the principal asked what level she had reached. Calmly, Zuganini stated, "Level 12. Every principal present was stunned. The record had been broken, just like that. The principal of Qingchong Academy beamed with pride. His student was indeed worthy of being a fire mage. Zhuge Qinxing walked up to his daughter, sighing that she was too willful. If she had just stayed in the dungeon a bit longer, grinded some more, she could have hit level 13. Zuganini replied honestly that the dungeon had gotten boring. It took ages to find level 10 monsters, and the experience rewards were pathetically small. But the real reason she came out early? She wanted to find Ling Yi. Being the first out meant she could see everyone else come out afterward. Meanwhile, back inside the secret realm, Ye Lin suddenly sneezed like he had a cold. Strange, this area wasn't cold at all. Was someone cursing him? And with all level 10 monsters gone, had he grinded too hard? Looks like he needed to widen his hunting grounds. Raising his hand, Ye Lin decided to try out another forbidden curse he'd learned: instantaneous range. The spell required sacrificing an organ based on importance, but in return, it could increase agility, with a maximum boost of 10 times for an hour. Wasting no time, Ye Lin activated the 10x agility boost, sacrificing his kidney. The feeling was insane. Even a level 50 assassin couldn't match this speed. He dashed like lightning, creating a sonic boom as he tore through the landscape. Before a three-headed storm mantis could even react to his presence, it was already too late. Sacrificing his bladder this time, Ye Lin unleashed a bolt of lightning, ashen fierce thunder that instantly incinerated the monster into ash. Back at the entrance, more and more students were pouring out of the dungeon. Some were ecstatic. Others were just glad to be alive. Through it all, Zuganini waited patiently, eyes fixed on the exit. She still hadn't seen Ling Yi. Only 5 minutes remained, and students were being called back to their designated school zones. With the test nearly over, it looked like the highest record this year would officially belong to Zuganini. Xinjiang Academy had scored big. Not only did they get 2 SSS-rank students, but now they had the record-breaking leveler of the year too. But speaking of Qingqing Academy's SSS-rank students, the other had yet to exit the secret realm, right? The countdown time had 3 minutes left, and the moment Zuganini heard this, she wondered if she had perhaps missed her target exiting the dungeon. But after briefly thinking it over, she found it to be impossible. She had been staring at the dungeon's entrance the moment she got out. In that moment, the entrance of the secret realm began to shimmer with a golden glow, indicating that someone was coming out. Seeing this, Zuganini was certain it must be Ling Yi, but was surprised when it turned out to be her classmate Ye Lin. Shocked, she asked why. Why was it Ye Lin? Ye Lin was puzzled with this stupid question. The time was up, so of course he had to exit the dungeon. Was there a problem? Zuganini got over her initial shock and began to walk away. She told Ye Lin that he was a coward and should stay away from him. Hearing this, Ye Lin gritted his teeth in annoyance. Seriously, what's wrong with this bitch? Was she a psycho? His principal approached him at this moment and asked what level he was at. He didn't have much expectation and was just curious as to what level his second SSS rank student was at. Ye Lin calmly replied that he was at level 16. The crowd present was stunned. You see, leveling up from 1 to 16 requires a total of 120,000 experience points. And the highest level monster in the novice secret realm was level 10. Killing level 10 monsters gives 100 XP, meaning Ye Lin killed 1,200 level 10 monsters. How is that even possible? The principal suddenly began praising Ye Lin like crazy, stating that he was the pride of Qingqiang Academy. Surprised with the young man's talent, Zhuge Qianxing also congratulated Ye Lin. This annoyed his daughter. She coldly remarked, "With Ye Lin's profession, what's so special about being level 16? Ye Lin was a forbidden curse master. If he recklessly uses forbidden curses, isn't it normal for him to level up quickly?" When the other principals heard Ye Lin's profession, they found Zhuge Nini's explanation reasonable. The rest of the crowd also believed Ye Lin must be crazy when they heard of his profession, frantically casting forbidden curses in the beginner's secret realm to level up. Other curse masters don't live past 25, and the way Ye Lin was leveling up meant he probably won't make it to 20. Seriously, trading one's life for empty fame. Truly a foolish behavior. Some also believed Ye Lin was frantically leveling up just so they'll envy him. But he will pay with his life eventually, so they should let him have his glory for a few days. The long-haired principal approached Ye Lin and questioned earnestly. "Student Ye Lin, why bother? Tell me honestly, did Principal Gao put you up to this? It seems you've been deceived. Principal Gao is trading your life for the school's honor." Irritated, Principal Gao asked what nonsense his old mate was spouting. He was a person of integrity. How could he possibly joke with the lives of his students? Ye Lin finally spoke after putting on a pitiful act. He stated that nobody forced him. It was all voluntary. I grew up in a poor family and was always looked down upon. Now that I have the chance to go all out, I won't be a coward. Even if I wither in my most brilliant moment, I don't care. I want everyone to know that I can do it. The moment Ye Lin finished his emotional speech, Zhuge Qinxin clapped and stated calmly, "Well said. This young guy truly has grand ambitions. In any case, he's the highest level student in this beginner's secret realm test. That's undeniable, isn't it? He's number one." Zhuge Qinxin introduced himself to Ye Lin as the father of Zhuge Nini. If Ye Lin needs anything in the future, he can contact him. Zhuge Nini was pissed off when she heard this, questioning her father why he believes Ye Lin was number one. When Ling Yi comes out, his level will definitely not be lower than Ye Lin's. "Oh, is that so?" His father retorted, although his tone was smooth. "Who is this talented Ling Yi?" Hearing this question, the principals began asking themselves if any of them had a student by that name. However, none of them seemed to have heard of this student. But Zhuge Nini still spoke confidently that Ling Yi was a true heaven's pride, and when he comes out of the dungeon, everything will be proven. Meanwhile, inwardly, Ye Lin was again insulting Zhuge Nini as a stupid bitch. She just couldn't keep her freaking mouth shut. Having enough of this farce, Ye Lin said his goodbye to Principal Gao and Zhuge Qinxin before taking his leave. He wanted to go home and rest well. Shortly after that, the time was up and the Novice Secret Realm test was over. But Zhuge Nini was puzzled with this outcome. Where was Ling Yi? Could it be that while I was talking to Ye Lin, Ling Yi quietly slipped away? Cursing, Zhuge Nini started blaming Ye Lin. She believed Ling Yi's escape was Ye Lin's fault. Where her father placed a hand on her shoulder, she asked if he believes him. Ling Yi was truly a genius, and he even saved her life. Zhuge Qinxin figured out that her daughter's early exit from the dungeon wasn't random at all. It was simply to find this mysterious Ling Yi. But something about this fell off. He asked Zhuge Nini if it was possible that Ye Lin was the mysterious Ling Yi she had been looking for. Hearing this, Zhuge Nini vehemently denied the possibility. What was her father thinking? How could that coward ever be compared to Ling Yi? Ye Lin saw the dragon blood behemoth she faced in the dungeon and ran away in terror like a total coward. And Ling Yi's mastery of the fire element was extremely high. How could Ye Lin, of all people, know anything about that? Meanwhile, back inside his apartment, Ye Lin let out another heavy sneeze which jolted him awake. He wondered who was talking behind his back. Seriously, it must be that stupid woman Zhuge Nini. Just then, a knock on his door drew his attention. Ye Lin asked who the person was. And the moment he opened the door, he questioned the fat business guy in front of him. The fat guy introduced himself as Wang. Mr. Wang, the manager of Ching Chung Brain King Oral Liquid Limited Company. He had been searching for Ye Lin for a while, and now he'd finally found him. The moment Ye Lin led Mr. Wang inside his apartment, he questioned what he was there for. Mr. Wang replied that he's got good news for Ye Lin. He heard Ye Lin successfully changed profession and even broke the highest level record in Qing Qing's beginner's secret realm. So his company was sincerely inviting him to endorse their product. Of course, the remuneration would definitely be substantial. Ye Lin asked how much exactly was substantial. Mr. Wang raised 3 fingers, which implied 3 million. He handed Ye Lin a tiny bottle, telling him to try it. It was the company's new product, a Brain King oral liquid. Not only does it nourish the brain and enhance intelligence, but it also promotes cell regeneration. Consuming 1 bottle, and a person would feel several years younger. Also, this century-old enterprise had a 10 times refund guarantee if the drug was proven ineffective. Ye Lin should try it. Ye Lin opened the cap of the bottle, knowing full well 3 million was worth several of his kidneys. It looks like fame really does pay. He drank the content in the bottle, which tasted a little sweet. Then he suddenly felt dizzy. Ye Lin passed out immediately after. Lying on his couch, Mr. Wang called someone on the phone and told the person that Ye Lin drank the content in the bottle. He prepared backup plans, but they weren't even needed. It seems Ye Lin was a simple fool. Mr. Wang was ordered to bring Ye Lin over. A while later, Deep into the night, an unspecified location. Inside an abandoned warehouse, Mr. Wong had successfully brought Ye Lin to his boss. Although he didn't understand why his boss was going through such lengths for a mere student, he knew he didn't have the right to ask questions. His boss, who happened to be the shop owner in the black market Ye Lin used to sell his organs to, told Mr. Wong to leave. Without his orders, no one should be allowed in. If anyone violated this order, they would be killed. Mr. Wong replied he understands and left the warehouse. The greedy shop owner crouched beside Ye Lin, recalling how Ye Lin sold him his liver, coronary arteries, gallbladder, corneas, kidneys, spleen, large intestine, small intestine. And surprisingly enough, they'd all grown back. The organs Ye Lin previously sold to him had all regenerated. Incredible. This was simply incredible. With Ye Lin, he could master the secret of organ regeneration. As he got drunk on his delusional fantasies, someone added that the old bastard will have supreme power and wealth. Even the most powerful people will kneel before him. Hearing this, the old bastard Ji Yujin agreed. Exactly. But the moment he said this, he realized what just happened. Turning around, he was stunned to find Ye Lin casually sitting on a chair with his arms and legs crossed. Ji Yujin wondered how it was possible. How was Ye Lin awake this early? His sleeping drug could keep even an elephant unconscious for 6 hours. But Ye Lin wasn't concerned about the stupid sleeping potion. He was more curious about how Ji Yujin managed to track him down. Ji Yujin got over his initial shock, pointed his blade at Ye Lin, and stated that since his cash cow was awake, he won't be polite anymore. He should surrender obediently, and he will guarantee Ye Lin won't lose any limb. Ji Yujin's profession was currently a level 20 Phantom Blade. Ye Lin realized Ji Yujin also had a job change with a higher level than his own. Left with no choice, he decided to get serious. He knew using fire element would easily burn this entire place down, so it was better not to cause too much commotion. Ye Lin decided to use his eternal freezing gaze. It was a forbidden curse that sacrifices his eyeballs to freeze everything within sight before becoming blind. Petrified, Ji Yujin was shocked to find the entire lower half of his body frozen. Ye Lin kept the spell active as the ice around Ji Yujin started extending. Ji Yujin wondered what was going on. What kind of spell was it? He plunged his blade into the ice around him, but was unable to break it. His eyes widened when the ice finally encased his entire body, leaving only his head exposed. Ji Yujin kept muttering that it was impossible. Ye Lin was only level 16, while he was level 20. Even if Ye Lin was a forbidden curse master, he couldn't possibly defeat him in one strike. What kind of monster was he? Now that Ji Yujin was trapped in place, Ye Lin could have a proper chat with him. He asked Ji Yujin who else knew about his organ regeneration ability. Ji Yujin replied that besides him, no one knew. After all, with such an amazing discovery, why would he tell someone else? Hearing this, Ye Lin chose to believe the old bastard and decided to make his death quick and painless. He raised his fist and smashed the poor old bastard into broken ice lollies. Also, after consuming all the sleeping drug, he decided to sacrifice his stomach first. Sacrificing his stomach, Ye Lin rained lightning on the guards outside. He left one alive for questioning. The poor fatty didn't want to die, so the moment Ye Lin asked who was his boss behind the scenes, he initially tried to reason with Ye Lin that he couldn't say, otherwise he would be killed. But after seeing Ye Lin enveloped with lightning sparks, he spoke up immediately. Their boss was king of Qing underground market, Kensen. The poor fatty was struck with a bolt of lightning the moment he was done talking. Grabbing his chin, Ye Lin walked away, trying to recall where he'd heard Kensen. The name seemed familiar. It didn't take much effort to remember that Kensen was one of Qing City's top 10 outstanding philanthropists. This just got complicated. Meanwhile, elsewhere at Qing's underground black market, a middle-aged man with a thick cigar lounged in a leather sofa as one of his men informed him about some urgent news. This fucker was Ken's son, and with his brows furrowed, he was shocked upon receiving news that all contact with his agent, Jihu, had been lost. The bald fellow informed him that they hadn't been able to contact Jihu for half an hour, so they went to his farmhouse, only to find the entire area burned to the ground. Judging by the wreckage from the fire, it was done by a job holder. Kin-san grew furious and stomped on the table in front of him, wrecking it. He ordered his men to find the culprit immediately, with no delay. The next day, Ye Lin arrived at the grand residence of the Ji family, where he was warmly welcomed by Ji Lingyu, who had become a loyal follower after their previous encounter. As soon as he heard that Ye Lin was visiting, he immediately sent someone to pick him up. Ji Lingyu shyly brought up the 2 million yuan that Ye Lin had asked for earlier, adding that he'd already talked to his father. However, Ye Lin interrupted him, questioning if Ji Lingyu was trying to disrespect him by talking about money at that moment. Since he'd agreed to accept Ji Lingyu as an underling, money was just a small matter. Hearing this, Ji Lingyu placed an arm around Ye Lin's shoulders and welcomed him wholeheartedly. From now on, Ye Lin should consider his home as his as well. Inwardly, Ji Lingyu realized that his father was right. He believed Ye Lin was a simple-minded guy who cared a lot about his dignity. So, as long as he could exploit that, he should be able to achieve his goal. Ye Lin, on the other hand, had planned this encounter with the purpose of using the Ji family as a shield against Kin-san and his men. He was sure Kin-san wouldn't dare attack him inside the Ji family estate. Ye Lin entered the house and was surprised to find a large number of maids lined up, greeting him politely and respectfully, which left him a bit speechless. He looked at the maids and thought to himself how different life was when one had wealth. Ji Lingyu offered to assign one of the maids to be Ye Lin's personal servant, and Ye Lin accepted the offer. But soon after, Ye Lin felt embarrassed and refused, saying he was only joking. However, Ji Lingyu insisted, adding that his boss should also change his clothes for something important. Ye Lin eagerly asked what the important matter was, but Ji Lingyu told him to wait until they arrived at the destination. Eventually, they arrived at the annual Qing auction, and Ji Lingyu informed him that this was the grand venue he had never visited before. Upon arriving at the annual auction in Qing City, Ji Lingyu told Ye Lin that he would later introduce him to some of the city's most important figures. But Ye Lin preferred to start with food and told Ji Lingyu to go about his own business and not mind him. Internally, Ji Lingyu sarcastically commented on Ye Lin's simplicity and naivety, thinking he still lacked experience due to his poor upbringing. As Ye Lin ate heartily, especially since he had previously sacrificed his stomach and now needed to compensate by eating more, he heard a voice beside him asking why he was here. When he turned around, he saw Zuganini and her friend Lu Yanwei standing there. Zuganini rolled her eyes and crossed her arms as Lu Yanwei leaned closer, still puzzled. "Who is he again?" she asked, clearly unimpressed. Ye Lin clenched his jaw slightly, barely hiding the irritation bubbling beneath his calm facade. Why the hell did this dumb woman keep bumping into him like some cosmic punishment? With a cold tone, Zuganini replied, "He's just that coward who ran away from the monster in the novice secret realm. Don't know why I keep seeing him. Total bad luck." Her words were sharp and dismissive, as if even acknowledging him too much would ruin her day. Ye Lin simply gave a slight smirk. Oh, if only she knew. If only she realized he was actually Ling Yi, the same person she obsessed over like a fangirl chasing an idol. How hilarious would that revelation be? Just then, Ji Lingyu returned with a group of young elites in tow. He proudly stepped up beside Ye Lin and declared, "Everyone, this is my boss. Show some respect." His friends exchanged confused glances. One of them raised an eyebrow and chuckled. "Shouldn't you be the one calling the shots, Ji Lingyu?" Ji Lingyu shook his head seriously. "You guys don't understand. He's not just anyone. This man hit level 16 while still in the novice secret realm." Gasps and stunned expressions spread through the group. Some nearly dropped their wine glasses. Compared to their weak levels, level 16 sounded like a distant fantasy. Ye Lin remained composed and said lightly, "Don't be too surprised. If we could get out of the city, I could help all of you level up before the big exam." Instantly, the mood turned electric. The thought of fast leveling made everyone excited. But Ji Lingyu's face darkened slightly. It's forbidden to leave the city before the major exam. They don't want people getting help from higher-level job holders. Ye Lin rubbed his chin and dropped a subtle suggestion. "But the journey to the exam site, that could be." Useful, no? His tone was casual, but the message was clear. Ye Lin's eyes lit up. I see what you mean. Then he added with confidence, don't worry about equipment. If you need anything, I'll get it for you right here at this auction. Ye Lin blinked. You sure? Some stuff here costs a fortune. Doesn't matter, Ye Lin said, waving it off. My dad said as long as we can boost our results in the exam, we've got full support. As they spoke, the auction hall's lights dimmed and a spotlight fell onto the stage. A stunning woman stepped up, smiling gracefully. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice smooth and melodic. I'm Ching, your host for this evening. I hope everyone leaves here with what they desire most. Applause followed her words, a mixture of anticipation and tension filling the air. Now, our first item. She gestured to a pedestal as a velvet cloth was pulled away. An epic-grade fire-type mage scroll. Bidding starts at 500,000 yuan. The crowd came alive. Hands shot up. Numbers escalated. 800,000, 1.2 million, 2 million, and then 3 million yuan. A commanding voice echoed from the VIP section. Everyone turned to look. Sitting there, calmly fanning himself, was Zhuge Ching, Zuganini's father. Ye Lin chuckled quietly to himself. How adorable. Daddy's out here emptying his wallet so his precious little girl can throw fireballs. Meanwhile, he, a forbidden curse master, could summon lightning, plagues, or instant death. No scrolls needed. He leaned back in his chair, quietly enjoying the chaos while sipping tea. Life was starting to get a bit more entertaining. Ye Lin leaned closer to Ye Lin and whispered, your profession's an A-rank Shadowblade, right? If something comes up that suits your class, don't hesitate. Bid right away. The right skill could save your life. Just as he finished speaking, Ching's voice rang through the hall again, clear and confident. Next up, a rare quality treasure, the Royal Dragon Wish Ring. It increases spirit by 30% and grants the passive skill, Dragon's Aura. Starting bid, 2 million. Minimum increment, 100,000. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bids. The crowd instantly ignited. 2.5 million, 3 million, 3.1 million. Numbers flew as the bidding escalated fast. Ye Lin's eyes gleamed. A 30% spirit boost? That was insane. For any awakened, it was a complete game changer. He nudged Ling Yu and gave him a look. This was a must-have. Ye Lin immediately turned to his father and whispered, Dad, I want that ring. President Ji barely blinked. Without hesitation, he raised a finger and calmly called out, 8 million. To him, 8 million was a small price for his son's success in the national exam. Once in a top university, their family name would be even more solid. And as for Ye Lin, he was a forbidden caster. Those guys didn't live long anyway. In a few years, whatever equipment they gave him would circle back to the G family. The auctioneer's voice rang out again. 8 million going once. Anyone for 8.1? 8.2? The hall quieted. Then suddenly, 10 million. A deep voice echoed from the back. The hall froze. Kinson stepped into view, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a sharp black coat. He casually waved at President G. Long time, President G. How have you been? Gasps rippled across the auction house. Everyone recognized the man. The Underground King. This wasn't his usual crowd. Why was he here? Ye Lin instinctively took a step back, vanishing into the nearby shadows. He couldn't be seen. Not by Kinson. Even a passing glance could expose everything. President G narrowed his eyes. What's G Group done to offend you now, Mr. Kinson? Kinson's expression darkened. He slowly raised a finger and pointed. You had my men killed. Now you want me to be polite about it? I don't know what you're talking about. President G replied smoothly. But if it's a fight you're after, G Group isn't exactly easy to push around. He raised his hand. 12 million. Kinson's lips curled into a smile, slow and dangerous. He understood loud and clear. This was war now. As he turned to leave, he muttered to his assistant, That car, did you confirm it came from the warehouse? The assistant nodded. No doubt. We followed it straight to G family's villa. Kinson's smile vanished. Good. Then he can't blame me for what's about to happen. Back in the auction hall, the gavel slammed down. Sold. Royal Dragon Wish Ring. 12 million to President G. President G looked pleased as he handed the ring to Ye Lin. What do you think? Like it? Ye Lin nodded politely. I do. Thank you. Ji Ling Yu leaned toward his father. Who was that guy? His father's voice was low. That's Kinson. Used to rule the underworld. Been trying to go legit lately. But I think he's set his sights on our empire now. And he's not the kind to make empty threats. Ye Lin listened silently before speaking. G Group has influence, but it attracts attention too. Just a suggestion, stay cautious. President G gave a rare, serious nod. You're right. The Emperor Dragon Rue ring pulsed gently in Ye Lin's hand. It boosted his spirit attribute by 30%, a massive increase in his curse-casting power. And with the dragon's aura blessing him, his luck had gone up by 10 points. Whatever was coming next, he'd need every bit of that luck. Ye Lin slipped the Royal Dragon Wish ring onto his finger, and instantly, a surge of raw energy coursed through his body. His spirit stats shot up by a staggering 30%, and his luck increased by 10. Feeling the boost at his core, he grinned and turned to President G, reassuring him, don't worry. Even if I have to drag him by force, I'll make sure Ling Yu gets into a top academy. President G laughed heartily. No need to be so formal. We're family now. You and my son are practically brothers. Whatever equipment catches your eye, just tell me. It's yours. True to his word, President G spent the rest of the night throwing down massive bids. If Ye Lin so much as glanced at something, a bid was placed. Item after item piled up in their favor. By the time the auction finally ended, Ji Ling Yu was completely wiped out, but his father had basically cleaned out the entire auction. They picked up a mountain of treasures, Azure Thunder Ring, boosted spirit by 15%, and all lightning-based abilities gained a 20% power-up. Molten Moon Necklace, granted plus 200 spirit for mental-type casters. Twin Inyong Bracelet, added 40 spiritual attributes, and more importantly, unlocked Cycle of Duality and granted a passive healing factor that rapidly regenerated injuries over time. Ye Lin's eyes sparkled when he got the bracelet. Now, even if someone saw him regenerating from fatal wounds, he had the perfect excuse. It was all just part of the gear. But the true crown jewel of the night, the Falling Star Warblade. This beast of a weapon added plus 300 strength on its own. But under Starlight, the blade's power would stack every few seconds, up to an additional plus 100. Ye Lin nearly trembled. With this in his hand, he could finally unleash that forbidden skill he unlocked at level 10, the Lifespan Blade Arts. With every swing, he'd sacrifice a year of his life. And with each swing, the damage would double from the previous one, stacking all the way to 99 slashes. With this combo, he wouldn't just pass the national exam, he could crush it. Meanwhile, across town, Zuganini lounged in her private bath, soaking in rose-scented water, yet her brows were furrowed in irritation. She still couldn't understand what the G family saw in that coward Eiling. They pampered him like a royal prince and spent an absurd amount of money on him. What are they planning? She thought bitterly. There's no way this is just goodwill. Her thoughts were interrupted by the knock on the door. A maid stepped in. Miss Zuganini, Lu Yanwei has arrived. She brought someone who claims to have information on the person you've been searching for. Zuganini's eyes lit up. Ling Yi. She rose from the water at once, quickly throwing on a silk robe. Tell them to wait in the lounge. I'll be there immediately. She descended the stairs moments later and found Lu Yanwei sitting with a stern-faced man. Lu Yanwei stood and gestured. This is Officer Huang. He's with the Investigation Bureau. He says he has news about Ling. Officer Huang gave a polite nod. Miss Zuganini, I'm afraid the news isn't good. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? With a grim expression, he took out his phone and turned the screen to her. A photo showed the charred remains of a farmhouse. This property was located just outside Qingqing. It was burned to the ground. Several casualties. He swiped again, showing another photo, black, scorched marks resembling clawed fire. We found traces of hellfire at the scene. And based on the description you gave us earlier, we believe the suspect may be the same Ling Yi you mentioned. Zuganini froze. We'd like your assistance in the investigation, Officer Huang said carefully. You're the only person we know who's made direct contact with him. Zuganini stared at the images, the heat of the bath long forgotten. Her breath slowed. Lingyi, what the hell are you really hiding? Hearing Officer Huang's accusation, Zuganini instantly shot to her feet. That's impossible, she shouted, face red with anger. Lingyi isn't a killer. He saved my life. He risked himself to protect me. Why would a murderer do that? Officer Huang remained calm, while Lu Yanwei quickly stepped in to soothe her friend. Nini, just hear him out first. I understand your reaction, Officer Huang said patiently. But according to your statement, Lingyi used Hellfire to obliterate an 8th-tier beast in one hit. And when we investigated, we couldn't find any record of someone named Ling. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. However, there was one name that did come up. Someone who fits the timeline and the pattern. Zuganini narrowed her eyes, tension building in her chest. Ye Lin, Officer Huang said slowly. There's strong reason to believe he might be your mysterious Ling. Zuganini froze, then burst out laughing. That coward? You think he's Lingyi? No way. He runs from trouble like it's chasing him with a bill. And Hellfire? He wouldn't even know how to spell it. Officer Huang activated his lie detection skill, his pupils flickering blue. Are you absolutely certain? Of course, Zuganini replied without hesitation. I've seen Lingyi with my own eyes. I'd never mistake that for someone like Ye Lin. Officer Huang studied her quietly. His skill didn't detect a single hint of falsehood. She was telling the truth. Ye Lin may not be their suspect after all. Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Zuganini. If anything comes up, please let us know immediately. Meanwhile, Ye Lin had far more exciting things on his mind. It was time to push his new gear to the limit. Ji Lingyu personally brought him to the Awakened Association Center, the heart of training in Qingqing City. A polite receptionist greeted them. Welcome. Will you be training today? Ji Lingyu nodded. Yes. My boss wants to test out his new equipment. The receptionist turned to Ye Lin. May I ask your level? Level 16, he answered confidently. Her brow lifted, but she nodded. We have standard training rooms for under level 20 awakeners. 100,000 yuan per hour. It includes force analysis and mana calibration. Ye Lin shook his head. No, I want a room for level 40 and under. The receptionist blinked in surprise, stunned silent for a moment. Then, with a faint smile of understanding, she nodded. Ji Lingyu remained outside, while she led Ye Lin into the high-tier training room. According to the lady, the training room was made of special materials and was built by an SS level builder. It can withstand the full force attack of job changers below level 40. This also applies to the dummies. It's extremely difficult for job changers below level 40 to leave marks on the dummies. The moment the door was locked, Ye Lin walked around and carefully checked the training room. And after confirming that there were no surveillance cameras, he visibly relaxed, then drew out his falling Star Warblade. Ye Lin made a dash forward, deciding to try Yongsho sword technique, which consumes a year of his life with every strike. Ye Lin leaped high in the air, grasped the falling Star Warblade tightly. The moment he swung the sword, his eyes became firm and deep. The first strike of the sword was followed by a deafening bang in the training room, as if something was completely torn apart. A bright light flashed on the blade of the falling Star Warblade, which was Ye Lin's burning life. After the first slash was made, the second slash that followed was even sharper and more powerful, and the air in the training room seemed like it's been slashed, forming an invisible sword energy. The third slash followed, then fourth and the fifth. Ye Lin's sword swinging speed was getting faster and faster, and each strike was more powerful than the last. When Ye Lin swung the sword for the 99th time, the entire training room seemed to be shaking, and strong energy fluctuations filled the air. At that moment, it was earth-shattering, and an unprecedented light burst out from the blade of the falling Star Warblade, illuminating the entire training room. As Ye Lin carried on, testing the rest of the equipment together with his forbidden spells, a slight tremor could be felt outside. Ye Lin explained to the lady that there was a major exams approaching, so Ye Lin likes to get a little bit crazy when he starts training. The two were interrupted the moment Ye Lin walked out of the training room with satisfaction. With his 2 forbidden spells of Burning, Reincarnation, and Longevity sword technique, coupled with the sword and the rest of the equipment, he had a rough estimate of his current strength. Ye Lin was curious as to why Ye Lin came out so soon. Ye Lin replied that he was exhausted and needed to head back and rest. Also, he wanted to know if he doesn't need to pay for breaking things in the training room. The lady initially thought Ye Lin was joking. After all, the training room was suitable for job changers below level 40. And if Ye Lin, a level 16 job changer, can damage the things inside, then it means the quality is not up to standard. How can she ask him to pay for it? Relieved, Ye Lin quickly led Ye Lin out of there as the lady went into the training room to check. When she found out that almost everything in the training room was completely wrecked, she covered her mouth in shock. The dummies were slashed and charred, and not a single dummy was left standing. Meanwhile, back at the G family residence, the 2 guards stationed at the entrance were suddenly attacked by an unknown enemy. The neck of one of the guards was pierced with a thin needle coated in poison. As the guard clutched his neck in pain, the other, seeing this, was alarmed and asked what was wrong. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of hands suddenly emerged from the shadows behind him. And just like that, his neck was snapped horribly from behind. Screams and bloodshed followed shortly after as the scene pans to President G, who was currently at his study when he heard all the commotion outside. He wondered what was going on. But just then, the old housekeeper, a bit bloodied and bruised, opened the office door and told his master to run. He was about to explain when suddenly a knife stabbed into his body along his lower back. He screamed in pain as his vitality quickly slipped away. The person responsible for this massacre finally came to view, and it was obviously none other than Kinson. "We meet again," he said, mocking President G. President G was furious as he took out his gun. But before he could even fire a shot, a long knife with a cold glow flashed by like lightning, and under President G's incredulous gaze, his hands had already flown high into the air. Kinson smiled with disdain on his face. He called President G a fool for using a gun against a job changer. Seriously, was he having a brain glitch or something? You see, guns were okay in dealing with those who had just successfully changed jobs. But once their strength reached level 30 or above, guns were no different from toys in front of them. Kinson raised his sword and was ready to kill President G when suddenly, one of his men rushed over and informed him that the 2 boys were not at the villa. Although Kinson was annoyed upon hearing this, he decided to let President G live a little longer. After all, killing him would be equivalent to cutting off Ye Lin's weak spot. But if he doesn't annihilate everything about the G family, they will eventually come back and seek revenge in the future. When Ye Lin and Ye Lin returned to the residence of the G family, they instantly felt that something was off. The guard stationed outside were missing. The entire villa was eerie quiet, and even the lights were off like there was a power outage. Ye Lin suddenly smelled a strong stench of blood and immediately rushed inside with a sense of dread as he switched on the lights. Ye Lin was stunned, staring at the horrifying scene. The bodies of the job changers and servants hired by the G family were everywhere, with broken limbs and arms scattered all over the ground. Many people had fear written all over their faces, as if they had encountered the most terrifying evil spirit before they died. Ye Lin took a few steps back, his face ashen as he tried to deny the reality. They must have entered the wrong place. This wasn't his home. Ye Lin warned him to be careful as he screamed in fear, frantically rushing towards his father's study like a madman. There was a piece of paper on the table not far from Ye Lin. Picking it up, he called Lin, he said gravely, "Come look at this." Ye Lin rushed over, seething with rage. The letter informs them that if Ye Lin wants to save his father, he should bring Ye Lin to the underground black market to find him. Also, with every 6 hours, he will cut a piece of flesh from his father. Ye Lin's anger was maxed out at this point. He tore the letter in half, vowing to kill Kinson with his own hands. Ye Lin was about to go find Kinson to fight him to the death when Ye Lin grabbed his shoulder. He stated that everything happened because of him, so he will go save President Ji while Ji Lingyu find a place to hide. Ji Lingyu wasn't having it, so Ye Lin skillfully knocked him out. He apologized and promised to bring his father safely. Ye Lin laid the unconscious Ji Lingyu on the sofa and left the villa. Ye Lin promised to show Kinsen how terrifying a cursed master who doesn't care about his freaking life is. Meanwhile, at the darkest heart of Qingcheng underground black market, Kinsen's men were spread all over the place, alert and armed. A black shadow crossed the night sky like a ghost and landed silently without alerting any guard. Ye Lin was wearing black clothes and black shoes, and his face was wrapped in black cloth. Ye Lin completely blended into the night. Although the guards were many, if he could sneak in quietly and catch Kinsen off guard, he might actually have a chance to kill him without any fuss. But just when Ye Lin was thinking about this, the next second, one of the guards suddenly turned in his direction, staring directly at him. Shocked, Ye Lin couldn't understand how. He had hidden perfectly, so why was he discovered so easily? The leader pointed his gun arrogantly at the hidden camera above Ye Lin's head and questioned which era he was from to be hiding in the shadows like that. Apparently, the entire place had surveillance cameras with infrared night vision. Sure enough, Ye Lin was still a little careless. But it doesn't matter as long as he wanna live all these people. The guy told him that their boss had been waiting for him. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this manhwa. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you either in a new manhwa recap or in the next episode of this one. Until then, take care and bye-bye. Three of them started approaching, and Ellen, seeing no point in sneaking around anymore, decided to go all in. Since Ling, he had already taken the fall for many of his actions, Ellen had no issue pinning the assassination of Ken on him too. But for that plan to work, not a single person could leave the underground black market alive tonight. Otherwise, the secret of his immortality could be exposed. Now that he was discovered, there was no need for pretense. Ellen pulled off the mask covering his face and subtly started forming complex hand signs with his left hand, hidden from view. Then, without warning, he activated a forbidden spell, Burning Reincarnation. With 5 pieces of gear boosting his mental power and his own already impressive 1,088 points, Ellen's total mental power surged to 2,176. The guards had no idea what kind of monster they were up against. A stream of blazing fire burst from Ellen's palms. The flames, glowing a fierce, purplish red, looked like they could incinerate anything. The 3 guards, already wary of Ellen's reputation, immediately opened fire. But Ellen dodged their bullets effortlessly. Even if they hit, they wouldn't have done much. Then he activated another forbidden spell, Karma Fire, burning the sky. This time, he sacrificed his left kidney. His right one had recently regenerated anyway. With his terrifying mental energy fueling it, the karmic flames roared to life, lighting up the night sky. In an instant, the fire spread and consumed the group, their screams and cries for help silenced by the inferno, leaving only the sound of crackling flames. 2 guards remained. They tried to flank him, but before they even realized what was happening, Ellen used the fleeting dance technique to boost his speed to the max. In a flash, he was right in front of them. He grabbed them by their faces, flames pouring from his hands. Moments later, both were engulfed, their bodies burning as they let out desperate wails before collapsing into scorched remains. Ellen emerged from the flames without a second glance, vowing silently that Kinsen would soon know his master had arrived. As Ellen neared the main building, the entrance door exploded into pieces. The air grew sharp and violent, forming 2 wind blades that sliced through the night, heading straight for him. But Ellen's reflexes were too quick. He dodged with ease. It was clear now, a wind-type awakened had attacked. Judging by the strength, it had to be a job changer above level 30. At the entrance stood 2 job changers, waiting calmly. The swordsman sneered, calling Ellen a bastard for coming alone, and asked if he wasn't afraid of dying. His partner, a spearman, laughed and reminded him that their boss wanted Ellen alive. The swordsman smirked and told him not to worry. He had no intention of killing Ellen. He just wanted a little warm up. Ellen didn't reply with words. He slowly drew his falling star warblade, the sword glowing ominously as the curse of the life sword automatically activated. In a cold voice, he warned the two that their luck had run out. Now, they'd face him and his blade. Then, with wind magic surging, he activated his next move, Dragon Pistol. The spearman lunged at Ellen, shouting that he'd wipe that smug look off his face. Ellen met his charge head-on, blocking the blow and countering with his first sword strike. Just then, the swordsman suddenly appeared behind Ellen, launching a powerful wind blade attack. But Ellen's fleeting dance technique was quicker. He dodged and countered with a second slash. Though Ellen's speed gave him an edge, his counter-strikes lacked impact, only grazing their skin. The two enemies scoffed, mocking him for his so-called sword skills. But Ellen wasn't fazed. He calmly warned them to be patient. After all, the power of the Yango sword technique stacked with every strike up to 99 times. Ellen's third slash was blocked by the spearman. The fourth was stopped by both enemies working together. But something shifted. The two began to realize Ellen's sword strikes were gaining strength, harder to block, sharper, more refined. With a loud clang, the fifth strike landed. Then came the sixth, followed closely by the seventh. When the eighth sword hit, it came with such overwhelming force that it shattered the swordsman's weapon and sent him crashing back several meters stunned. The spearman shouted out to his brother in panic. Just 8 strikes into the Yango technique, and they already couldn't keep up. Ellen winced, clutching his chest as the energy of the 8th strike pulsed through him. But despite the pain, he advanced on the spearman, a deadly intent in his eyes. The man stared at him, wide-eyed, demanding to know what kind of sword technique could grow stronger with every slash. Under the glow of the wind blade's light, Ellen's face looked ice-cold. He simply replied, "You don't need to know." Then came the sound of a blade slicing through flesh. Blood sprayed into the air like a fountain. With one casual yet precise swing, Ellen cut him down. As the spearman's body collapsed lifelessly, his brother let out a guttural scream of grief and fury, calling Ellen a devil. Something inhuman. He swore Ellen would die a terrible death. Ellen met the insult with a chilling silence. Then, without hesitation, he activated the burning reincarnation curse spell again. The roaring flames engulfed the man completely, silencing his screams and reducing him to a blackened husk. Without a word, Ellen walked off, his aura cold and dominant. He repeated to himself what he'd said from the start. No one here was leaving alive. He entered the massive building and didn't stop moving. On every floor, he cut through anyone in his way. Several job changers above level 30 tried to challenge him, but it was useless. Against a forbidden spellmaster like Ellen, who couldn't die and who unleashed devastating cursed spells with every motion, none of them stood a chance. His brutal, self-sacrificing style of combat made it easy to eliminate even high-level foes. But it wasn't without cost. Ellen's body was a wreck, slashed open in places, pierced by countless weapons. His skin was burned, frozen, and scarred beyond recognition. Yet through it all, he pressed forward like a demon, a Shura from the underworld, here to collect the souls of the damned. As he moved deeper into the building, cutting down everyone in his path, there was only one question on his lips. Where is Kensen? But that's when Ellen ran into real trouble. Shiai Shoui, a level 42 job changer who stood in his path like an immovable wall. The man was massive, built like a mountain, with a murderous glint in his eyes and a faint smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. Shoei looked Ellen up and down and called him brave. After all, Not many dared to barge into the underground black market alone and stir up trouble, especially not against someone like him, a well-known enforcer in these parts. Still, seeing Ellen's body riddled with stab wounds, bullet holes, cuts from swords, spears, and halberds, Zui couldn't help but wonder aloud how this kid was even still breathing. What kind of secret was he hiding? Ellen's instincts immediately sharpened. This wasn't just another thug. Shoei was on a completely different level. He could tell from the man's aura alone that he couldn't afford even the smallest mistake. That axe alone could split a truck in two. Ellen kept his guard up and calmly replied that his secret might just come to light if Shoei was willing to drop the axe. Naturally, Zui laughed off the suggestion. If Ellen wasn't going to talk, then he'd just beat the secret out of him, slowly. In an instant, Zui charged, his giant axe crashing down with a force so great the entire building shook. Chunks of debris flew through the air as the floor trembled beneath them. Ellen gritted his teeth and narrowly avoided the strike by activating both Burning Reincarnation and Fleeting Dance. He knew better than to take this guy lightly. But with both forbidden spells active, Ellen's condition surged to its peak. Zui wasn't impressed. He scoffed and asked how long Ellen thought he could last by burning away his own life just to gain temporary strength. But Ellen pushed through the pain like it was nothing, charging in again and swinging his blade wildly to stack up his sword technique. Yet, the attacks weren't landing hard enough. Shui's next strike released an even more terrifying wave of power, slamming into Ellen with explosive force. His relentless axe swings soon disarmed Ellen, knocking the falling star warblade right out his hands. Ellen's expression darkened. As expected, a level 42 job changer was on a whole different playing field. Even with his 99-layer Yango, sword technique, burning reincarnation, and fleeting dance, he couldn't overpower Shoei. But Ellen had one final edge, his burning immortality. Shoei, riding the momentum of his last attack, swung his axe down hard into Ellen's shoulder. The sickening crunch of bones shattering echoed through the air. His clavicle and shoulder cracked under the pressure, and blood burst from his mouth again as his body was sent flying like a cannonball, crashing hard into a distant wall. Shoei slowly approached Ellen's broken form. A bit disappointed, he muttered that he was just getting warmed up, but Ellen already looked done. Lying there, beaten and bloodied, Ellen gave a bitter smile. He had to admit it, when it came to fighting close-range monsters like Shoei, his sword skills just weren't enough. Even so, Ellen wasn't out of cards yet. He had one final trump card left, and Shoei would soon learn that he was the one who forced Ellen to use it. Slowly, painfully, Ellen pushed himself up from the rubble. His mangled shoulder began to heal in real time, bones cracking back into place, torn flesh stitching itself together, and the blood stopped flowing as if time itself reversed. And then came the insane part. Ellen didn't just go all out, he sacrificed everything. His liver, his left lung, stomach, right kidney, gallbladder, duodenum, pancreas, spleen, both his intestines. You name it, he offered it up just to summon one spell, the legendary world-destroying thunder. See, forbidden spells weren't all powerful by themselves. No matter how destructive they were, their true potential could only be unlocked by the strength of the caster. And Ellen? He was only level 16. That alone meant a normal thunder spell wouldn't even make Shoei flinch. But this wasn't just any thunder. This was chaos thunder, brought forth at the cost of half his body, literally. The sheer sacrifice behind it made the spell devastating beyond reason. As the sky cracked open and the world-destroying thunder surged down like an angry god, Shishui's face twisted in panic. His eyes widened, and in that split second he knew he was screwed. Sure, he had a divine physique, and maybe that divine body could absorb part of the impact. But against this, it wasn't even close to enough. The thunder struck with godlike wrath. In a blink, the upper half of Shui's body was vaporized into ash. Only his severed hand, still clutching the battle axe, remained. Then, that too was reduced to nothing. His bottom half disintegrated shortly after, blown away like paper in a storm. Ellen might lack flawless swordsmanship, but when it came to summoning chaos thunder, he was in a league of his own. And if Shui still wanted answers about Ellen's power, well, he could go ask the King of Hell now. Groaning in pain, Ellen staggered toward the staircase to the next floor. His body trembled, and his vision swayed. Turns out sacrificing most of your internal organs hits hard. Who would have guessed? Meanwhile, in the presidential suite located at the top of the same building, Kinson was unfazed by the chaos downstairs. Relaxed, smug, and indulging in the company of one of his many women, he didn't even bother to check on the fight. Someone had told him an intruder was in the building, sure. But Kinson was confident. Shishoui, his so-called mini-boss, was more than enough to deal with any lunatic stupid enough to pick a fight here. After all, if someone somehow defeated every single guard in this fortress, maybe then it'd be worth his attention. For now, the only important thing was offering Miss Chen a taste of something delicious he'd been saving. She caught the implication right away and was clearly into it. But just before things could heat up, Ellen kicked the door open like a madman possessed. He stormed into the suite like a flaming demon, the air around him practically sizzling with killing intent. Before Kinson could even blink, Ellen was demanding to know where President Ji was. Kinson stood up, visibly annoyed, staring at the blood-covered kid who somehow made it through everything. Confused, he casually asked where Shishoui was. But Ellen had no interest in small talk. He leaped into the air with his sword raised, shouting down at Kinson that his precious little pet was already dead, and he was next on the list. Kinson couldn't help but laugh at the boldness. The sheer audacity of this brat. He didn't even flinch. In one swift motion, he caught Ellen's sword with his bare hand, unmoved. After all, he wasn't called the Underground King of Qing for nothing. A dozen men had tried to kill him before. Ellen was just the latest fool. But this time, he might have underestimated his opponent. But unfortunately, Ellen just wasn't worthy, at least not in Kinson's eyes. With a sneer, Kinson lunged forward and gripped Ellen by the neck. Without wasting a moment, he exerted his overwhelming dominance. He told Ellen to learn something important in his next life, never mess with him. Then he activated a heavy power skill called Breaking Gasp, and just like that, he crushed Ellen's throat as if it was nothing. No struggle, no resistance, just a casual snap. Ellen's lifeless body hit the floor with a thud. Kinson didn't even bother to look back. He was irritated, annoyed at the wasted time and effort spent on what he now saw as a pointless inconvenience. But that smug calm didn't last long. To his shock, the dead kid wasn't dead at all. Ellen got back up, and not only that, every single wound on his body seemed to have healed. Flawlessly, instantly. Kinson blinked in disbelief. That couldn't be possible. He crushed the brat's throat with his own hands. He felt the bones break. Ellen was super dead. And yet, here he was, alive and even smirking. Ellen just scoffed at Kinson's temper tantrum. Dead? Him? That would have been boring. He hadn't even had any fun yet. Without another word, Ellen sacrificed his left eye and activated a cursed spell, Eyes of External Freeze. Instantly, Kinson's legs were sealed within an icy prison, completely locking him in place. The arrogant underground king of Qingqing immediately panicked, questioning what kind of spell this was and why he couldn't move. But Ellen ignored all that. He had a question of his own. Where was President Ji? Kinson refused. He wasn't about to reveal the hostage's location. So Ellen made him pay. He activated Burning Reincarnation, and in the next moment, Kinson's arms ignited in hellfire. Flames devoured his limbs as he howled in pain, wailing like a woman in labor. Suddenly, during the fiery chaos, a dull thud sounded behind Ellen. Miss Chun had dropped to her knees, holding a loaded gun to the back of a bound and gagged President Ji. Her voice was tense but clear. Let Kinson go, or she'd pull the trigger. Ellen turned slightly, amused by the scene. He casually commented on how Miss Chun suddenly wanted to play righteous hero for her man. Then he extinguished the flames and proposed an exchange of hostages. But the moment Ellen stepped forward, Miss Chun snapped. She pointed the gun directly at him and warned him not to take another step, or she would shoot. Unbothered, Ellen simply asked whether she actually wanted to make an exchange or not. Kinson, despite being burned and frozen, still barked out orders. He didn't need a woman to save him, but he still wanted to protect her. He told Miss Chun to get out now. But the woman didn't listen. Instead, she pulled the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. 3 bullets struck Ellen in the stomach, chest, and left shoulder. He fell to the floor. Miss Chun rushed to Kinson's side in a panic, believing she'd finally stopped the monster. But Kinson called her a fool, because that brat wasn't dead. As Ellen slowly stood up again, the disbelief on Miss Chun's face was unmistakable. And without wasting time, he made his way toward President Ji. Once there, he activated the eyes of external freeze once more. Miss Chun's hands, gun and all, froze in place, locked together in solid ice. She stared at him, stunned. The last sliver of fake bravado she had shattered instantly. Kinson, seeing this, shouted desperately. He begged Ellen to come at him and leave the girl alone. But Ellen didn't respond to his pleas. In one swift move, his blade flashed with a starlight gleam, and Kinson's head was severed cleanly from his shoulders. The pleas stopped. So did the arrogance. Kinson, the feared underground king of Qing, died with his eyes wide open. Miss Chun just stared, paralyzed by the horror in front of her. Her lips trembled, and her eyes filled with tears. Then she let out a sharp, uncontrollable scream. But Ellen didn't react. Expressionless, he turned his attention to President Ji. He lifted the unconscious body and carried it over his shoulder. Miss Chun, voice low and broken, asked if Ellen was going to kill her too. Ellen just sighed. He told her not to be ridiculous. He doesn't kill women. If her lover hadn't kidnapped President Ji, he never would have been her enemy. Then, with the same coldness in his voice, he told her to leave the building. Miss Chun was left speechless. Whether she listened or not, no one knows. Because shortly after, Ellen burned the entire building to the ground. With a wave of his hand, the cursed hellfire spread everywhere. The building erupted in karmic flames. The very next day, at the GI family residence, President Ji finally regained consciousness after receiving emergency treatment. He lay in bed, his body wrapped completely in bandages like a full-body mummy. Despite the severity of his injuries, he was fortunate. His severed hands had been successfully reattached and healed. The moment Ye Lin saw his father open his eyes, he burst into tears. The thought of never seeing his father again had been eating away at him, and now that fear was finally put to rest. President Ji gently comforted his emotional son, telling him not to worry. As long as he was still breathing, the GI family would be fine. His voice was weak but reassuring. Then his eyes slowly turned toward Ellen, filled with doubt and curiosity. After all, he had been in a coma through the entire ordeal and had no idea how he was rescued. The burning question lingered. How did Ellen pull it off? Ellen awkwardly scratched the back of his neck, clearly trying to dodge the spotlight. He told President GI that, truthfully, he didn't quite know the full story himself. The person who handled the actual rescue was his good friend, Ling Yi. It was Ling Yi who had saved President Ji from Kinson, and it was him who burned down the entire black market. President Ji raised a brow at the name. This Ling Yi character, he had never heard of him before. Even though he was grateful and lucky to still be alive, he couldn't help but wonder, where did this Ling Yi come from? But Ellen wasn't sure either. He admitted he'd only known of Ling Yi's existence for a short while, and based on everything so far, he doubted Ling Yi would reveal anything about himself. President Ji understood the hint and chose not to press any further. If Ellen didn't want to talk, then, as an old man, he'd respect that boundary. Instead, he shifted the conversation to a more pressing issue, the college entrance exam. There wasn't time to delay. Ellen and Ling Yu reassured him immediately. There were still 27 hours left before the exam began, and they'd been preparing hard. They promised not to disappoint him. Just then, the front gate buzzed, and 3 men in dark suits and sunglasses arrived at the villa. Invited inside, the trio walked in confidently, carrying an air of official authority. They introduced themselves as officers from the Investigation Bureau. Without wasting time, Officer Huang stepped forward and presented an arrest warrant to Ellen. He declared that Ellen was suspected of involvement in a major murder case within the city, and they required him to accompany them for investigation. A single bead of sweat trickled down Ellen's cheek. He hadn't expected the Investigation Bureau to come knocking this quickly. Still, resisting arrest outright would be risky. Very risky, so he decided to cooperate for now, go along with them, assess the situation, and figure out his next move as things progressed. As the officers led him out of the room, Ji Lingyu immediately questioned why they were arresting his boss. But the officers remained stone silent. Ellen turned his head slightly, trying to keep things calm. He simply told the two of them to remember to come pick him up later at the Investigation Bureau. President Ji, ever the composed patriarch, reassured Ellen firmly. He promised to hire the best lawyer available, one who could definitely get him out. Meanwhile, over at the Zuga family villa, the atmosphere was very different. Zhua Channing knocked gently on his daughter's door, calling out to her. There was new information, news about Ling Yi, the very man she had been obsessively fixated on. The second his daughter Zhuanini heard his voice, she jumped up with uncontainable excitement. It was like she had just received the best news of her life. Her father even had to remind her to change her clothes before coming down to meet their guest, Officer Hang from the Investigation Bureau, who was waiting downstairs. As Zhuanini hurried to her closet to change, her father turned away from the door with a long, weary sigh. He shut it gently behind him, and then began coughing violently in the hallway. From his pocket, Zhua Chongqing pulled out a key and held it up, his expression unreadable but knowing. With a solemn murmur, he acknowledged the unthinkable. He hadn't expected Ellen to be capable of taking down Kensen all by himself. But at that moment, what really had Zhuge Chongqing all serious was the fact that he didn't have much time left. When is Ellen finally going to accept my offer and ask for help? He wondered. Apparently, it seemed Ellen's secret wasn't as airtight as he thought. Meanwhile, at the Qingchong Investigation Bureau, a tall, imposing fortress of a building stood like a symbol of absolute power. Within it, a special solitary confinement cell existed, one that made even the idea of breaking out by force laughable. In that very cell, Ellen sat quietly in the only chair, waiting. The iron door creaked open slowly. From the shadowed hallway stepped a man whose face was still concealed under the cast of light and darkness. Ellen, remaining calm, spoke first. He told the man plainly that until his lawyer arrived, he wouldn't say anything. Of course, even as he said that, he was well aware that President Ji's connections and whatever high-profile lawyer they could afford probably wouldn't be enough this time. Too many people had died for this to be swept under the rug. The man clearly had no interest in waiting. He stepped inside, visibly irritated, and before Ellen could get out another word, he was suddenly grabbed by the collar and lifted clean off the ground. The man's tone turned harsh. He demanded to know where that thing was. Ellen, still dazed and struggling for breath, coughed and asked what the hell the man was talking about. He had no idea what thing he was referring to. But the man only got angrier. To him, Ellen was just playing dumb. He threatened to gouge out Ellen's eyes if he kept up the act. Without hesitation, he slammed Ellen into the wall, and Ellen felt like he'd just been hit by a speeding truck. Then the man coldly clarified he was talking about the key. Since Kinson had died by Ellen's hands, the key must have ended up with him. Back then, Ellen had intentionally taken nothing from the underground black market. He wanted to avoid leaving a trace. If there was a key, he likely incinerated it with the rest of the place. But now none of that mattered. What mattered was that he couldn't let this man notice anything unusual. If he reacted strangely or showed any signs of healing too fast, the man might uncover the secret of his immortality. And if not that, he might just blind him for good. Since the truth wasn't being heard, Ellen decided to play along. He claimed the key was with him, but not with him. And if the guy kept up his violence, he'd make sure the key would never be found. But even knowing this, Ellen grit his teeth and demanded that the man get him out of the bureau before anything else. In response, the man yanked him up by the hair and drove a solid punch into Ellen's left cheek. Ellen spat out fresh blood. He silently accepted that the man had no martial ethics, no moral compass whatsoever. Slumped against the floor, Ellen slowly raised one hand like he was calling timeout. He said he wanted to make a phone call. The man, seeing Ellen finally showing some cooperation, pulled out his phone. He sneered, saying if Ellen had just acted like this from the start, he wouldn't have had to suffer. Ellen took the phone. He started dialing. But inside, he was seething. This bastard's getting payback. Tenfold. 10 minutes later, someone entered the cell. And it was none other than Zhuge Chongqing. The moment he walked in, he brushed off the officer's slimy welcome. He cut right to the point. He told the officer to shove it, and added, "Here's the damn key you wanted so bad." In Zhuge Chongqing's hand was the key, the one the officer had been desperate to find. And he handed it over without so much as a fake smile. As the officer made his way out, he paused for a moment, glancing back and asking Zhuge Chongqing why he was helping that little brat. Without even turning to look at him, Zhuge Chongqing replied flatly, it was none of his business. He'd already handed over the key, and as far as he was concerned, their deal was done. That was the end of it. The officer gave a quick, awkward apology and exited the room. Left behind, Ellen sat in silence for a moment, processing everything. He was relieved the brutal interrogation had come to an end, but something didn't sit right. How did Kinson's key end up in Zhuge Chongqing's hands? It didn't make any sense. Did this mean he was entangled in something far bigger than he imagined? Feigning an innocent demeanor, Ellen gave his thanks. If it hadn't been for Zhuge Chongqing's help, he might have been in serious danger. But Zhuge Chongqing wasn't buying any of that. He cut straight to the point. He didn't save Ellen out of the kindness of his heart. He had his own selfish reasons. Besides, if Ellen's secret were to get out, every powerful figure in Dacia, maybe even overseas, would come after him. That sentence hit Ellen like a sledgehammer to the chest. Zhuge Chongqing actually knew about his immortality. Ellen's mind raced. Should I kill him right here? Trying to conceal the spike of emotion rising in his chest, Ellen kept his voice neutral. He tried playing dumb. But Zhuge Chongqing wasn't fooled. He noticed it, the brief flash of killing intent in Ellen's eyes. Was it directed at him? Most likely. That only confirmed his suspicions. Yes, Ellen really was immortal. Just as Ellen debated whether to act, Zhuge Chongqing continued speaking confidently. He said what he observed made it clear. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how unbelievable, must be the truth. An immortal body, yet still so weak. That only made the legend more convincing. Ellen asked directly, what exactly did Zhuge Chongqing want from him? But instead of answering, the old man posed a question of his own. Are you willing to become my disciple? That caught Ellen completely off guard. Disciple? He didn't even know what it would mean. The old man gave a faint cough before answering. He explained he didn't have much time left. Before he died, he wanted to take in a disciple, someone he could entrust with certain responsibilities. Ellen was the one he had chosen. Still puzzled, Ellen asked what these so-called tasks were. Zhuge Chongqing didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a key, identical to the one he had handed to the officer moments earlier. Ellen's eyes widened in shock. There were two? Reading the confusion on Ellen's face, Zhuge Chongqing gave a faint smile and explained. The key he handed to the officer was a fake, crafted with immense effort by an old blacksmith friend of his. What Ellen now held in his hand was the real one, the ancient key of the apocalypse. Ellen examined the key. It was forged from bronze, flecked with rust, and yet it radiated an ancient and mysterious aura unlike anything he'd ever seen. Zhuge Chongqing began to explain. This world hadn't always had monsters or job changers. Everything changed when the gate of apocalypse descended upon the world. From that gate, 7 ancient artifacts of origin fell and scattered across the earth. Each one contained unimaginable power. The first 7 humans to obtain these artifacts became terrifying forbidden existences, each one an unstoppable force. From that point on, the entire world began to mutate. People gained job-changing abilities. Strange monsters appeared. Dungeons started popping up. But what Ellen held in his hands was very much real. This key, the ancient key of apocalypse, was the key to opening the gate once again. Zhuge Chongqing turned his gaze back to Ellen. So, are you willing to become my disciple and help me? Ellen paused, thinking carefully. With his secret now known by this man, he didn't really have a choice. So finally, he nodded. He agreed to become Zhuge Chongqing's disciple. Still, he confessed uncertainty. Was he even capable of fulfilling the task his new master would give him? Zhuge Chongqing chuckled and placed a hand on Ellen's shoulder. When did you become so humble? He asked. With your current strength, if you enter the Supreme Academy to continue your studies, your future will be immeasurable. But before any of that, there was one more thing he wanted Ellen to take care of. Ellen tilted his head slightly. What is it? He asked. Looking weary, Zhuge asked Ye Lin if he would become his disciple and complete the task he could no longer finish. Knowing his own time was running out, he sought someone capable of continuing his legacy, and Ye Lin, with his unique body, was the only one who could. Ye Lin smiled faintly. He admitted that since Zhuge already knew his secret, refusal wasn't an option. Still, he hesitated, saying he wasn't sure he could accomplish such a task. Zhuge only laughed, reassuring him that with his current strength and potential, his future was limitless, especially once he entered the Supreme Academy. Before they left, Zhuge mentioned there was one last thing to entrust to him. When Ye Lin asked what it was, Zhuge's tone softened. He wanted Ye Lin to look after his daughter, Ni, after his death. Ye Lin grew awkward, knowing Ni disliked him and often called him a coward. Trying to lighten the mood, he told Zhuge he would surely live a long life, even though he could see how frail the old man had become. Zhuge smiled, saying that Ni was a good girl and that relationships could be built over time. For now, what mattered most was Ye Lin's upcoming final test. Ye Lin agreed, and they left the cell together. Later, at the Zhuge residence, Ni was furious. She couldn't believe her father had chosen Ye Lin as his disciple. She shouted that it was impossible and confronted Ye Lin directly, questioning why he was even in their home. Ye Lin simply told her to ask her father. When Ni demanded answers, Zhuge gently asked why she was so upset and confirmed that Ye Lin truly was his new disciple. Shocked, she protested, pointing out that Ye Lin was a forbidden spellcaster who supposedly wouldn't live past 25. Zhuge calmly told her not to speak so harshly, explaining that Ye Lin was stronger than she realized, and, in fact, the very person known as Ling Yi, whom she had been searching for. I refused to believe it, accusing Ye Lin of lying and even tricking her father. Zhuge Nini sat alone, fuming. She muttered to herself that as long as Ye Lin stayed in the house, there would be no place for her. She swore to find out his true identity and expose whatever mask he was hiding behind. A little later, Ye Lin asked Zhuge if he truly wanted to protect her. Zhuge told him not to think too much about what Nini said. She wasn't a bad person, only a bit proud and short-tempered. Then, taking out a small box, Zhuge mentioned that the final test was approaching and handed it to Ye Lin as a gift. When Ye Lin asked what it was, Zhuge explained that it was called the illusion skin. Once worn, it would let him disguise himself completely. His appearance, voice, and even his aura would change. Ye Lin thanked him, knowing this would be very useful. The scene shifted to the large city gate where buses waited. Students crowded around, chatting and laughing under the clear blue sky. Ling Yu greeted Ye Lin, relieved that he had come, and Ye Lin assured him that he would keep his promise. Ling Yu mentioned that the matter involving Ye Lin's master had been settled. Nearby, Nini was still angry, insisting that her father had been deceived. Ling Yu defended Ye Lin, warning her not to speak without proof. Nini snorted, saying that Ye Lin was pretending to be Ling Yi just to get close to her, and that she would prove it during the final test. Soon the principal arrived, rallying the students for the big day. He reminded them that this test was their chance to prove themselves and bring honor to Qingqing Academy. The students shouted in response, full of excitement and determination. After a while, everyone gathered again at the city gate. Some students marveled at how tall it was, amazed by the sight. Ye Lin reminded Ling Yu to stick to their plan once they were outside, and Ling Yu agreed. The official in charge announced that the gate would open soon. All candidates would need to travel 10 kilometers through the wilderness to reach the test zone. He warned them that those who went first would face demonic beasts, and that their survival would depend on their own strength. The students shouted that they were ready, and the test officially began. Nini glared at Ye Lin, declaring she wouldn't lose to him. The principal and his peers chatted among themselves, guessing how many students might enter Daxia Academy this year. One said there were only 5 last year, while another predicted a similar number this time. The principal of Qingchang Academy boasted that at least 2 of their students would make it, drawing a sharp reply from a rival principal not to get ahead of himself. As they spoke, a foul smell filled the air. Some students complained about it, and another explained that it was the scent of demon beast corpses. Suddenly, a huge red-scaled lizard leapt out, a level 11 bloodthirsty demon lizard. Chaos followed as the students screamed and ran. The older observers watching from a distance chuckled, saying the creature was nothing dangerous. The Qingchang principal laughed too, noting that those frightened students clearly weren't from his academy. Ye Lin moved swiftly through the crowd, telling everyone to clear the way before cutting off the creature's head in a single strike. Students gasped at the power of his sword, whispering that it must be a rare weapon. Some recognized him as the Forbidden Spellcaster, surprised he hadn't ended the fight sooner. Ye Lin then called Ling Yu over to finish the battle. Ling Yu rushed forward, and together they defeated the monster. A system notification appeared, confirming they had earned experience points as a team. Students watching were stunned. They realized that Ling Yu was gaining experience through Ye Lin's strength, and joked that they wished they had a teammate like him. Others even asked if Ye Lin was looking for more subordinates. Nini, watching from the side, frowned as she thought about how team battles split the earned experience. She clenched her fists and swore to herself that she would surpass Ye Lin in this test, no matter what. The team continued moving through the forest, cutting down monsters one after another with ease. First came a level 11 werewolf with sharp claws and thick fur, quickly defeated. And Ji Lingyu was thrilled to see his level rise rapidly to 8. He couldn't believe how smoothly everything was going and swore his loyalty to Ye Lin, who simply told him not to get too excited too soon. As they went deeper into the woods, the trees grew denser and the light dimmed. Ye Lin noted that there weren't many demonic beasts left nearby and suggested moving further in. Ling Yu hesitated, pointing out that stronger monsters, around levels 20 to 30, would appear deeper in. Ye Lin didn't seem bothered, saying he could handle anything up to level 20 and that they would run if something stronger showed up. Watching from afar, Principal Gao frowned. He commented that Ye Lin was being reckless by bringing his teammates into such a dangerous area. Another principal, however, assured him that the examiners had already secured the surroundings and that nothing serious would happen. Further ahead, Ye Lin spotted several level 20 wolves lurking in the bushes. He warned Ling Yu to be cautious, and Ling Yu replied that he valued his own life too much to take risks. Ye Lin began planning his next move, realizing that his lifespan sword skill consumed too much energy and couldn't be used for long without drawing attention. After a brief moment of thought, he invoked a different power. Dark energy swirled around him as he summoned lightning from the sky. A massive bolt struck down, wiping out the level 20 beasts instantly and shaking the ground beneath them. Ling Yu stood frozen, stunned by how easily Ye Lin had destroyed them, asking if this was how he normally fought. Ye Lin casually brushed it off, saying that this was nothing compared to what was coming next. They continued deeper until an examiner suddenly appeared, stopping them in their tracks. The man warned that they couldn't leave the test area and that the surroundings were too dangerous. Ye Lin asked if they really couldn't go any further, and Ling Yu added that they might already be close to the edge of the test zone. Realizing they had gone far enough, Ye Lin sighed, agreed to stop, and told the examiner to stay alert as they turned back. Ling Yu froze in shock, unable to process what had just happened. The examiner, thinking Ye Lin was joking, laughed and said that he had been an examiner for 20 years and wouldn't fall for such a simple trick. But before he could finish, the ground shook as a massive green goblin hero burst out of the forest, holding a club as large as a tree. The examiner's face went pale as he shouted in fear, realizing it was a level 33 goblin hero. Ling Yu yelled for everyone to run, but before they could move, the creature swung its club in a sudden attack. The examiner was struck hard and screamed in pain. Ye Lin cursed under his breath, calling him a fool, then shoved Ling Yu away, ordering him to run while he distracted the monster. Ling Yu refused, insisting they escape together, but Ye Lin kicked him forward and shouted for him to stop arguing. Ye Lin knew he couldn't defeat such a high-level monster without revealing too much of his power. He steadied himself and gathered his energy, summoning the power of his forbidden spell. The monster staggered back, but wasn't dead yet. Ling Yu glanced over his shoulder, calling out for Ye Lin to be careful and promising to wait ahead. The injured examiner tried to stand, telling Ye Lin to run and that he would handle it, but before he could finish, another heavy blow hit him. He managed to fire a flare gun before collapsing. The signal shot through the sky, calling for help. Ye Lin rushed over and grabbed the fallen man, trying to wake him. Seeing the examiner barely conscious, Ye Lin muttered to himself that it would have been easier if the man had stayed unconscious, as now he had to be careful not to reveal his strength. He noticed two more examiners approaching in response to the flare and sighed quietly. The newcomers quickly assessed the situation. One shouted that there was a serious threat, while another told Ye Lin to leave so he wouldn't be caught in the crossfire. Ye Lin nodded, saying he would carry the injured examiner to safety. As he lifted the man, a plan formed in his mind. He slipped the illusion skin over his face, feeling it tighten and shift. Within seconds, his appearance changed completely. He now looked identical to one of the examiners. Amused, he thought the disguise worked even better than expected. The other two examiners began attacking the goblin with spells and weapons, trying to end the fight quickly without disturbing the ongoing test. Pretending to be their ally, Ye Lin joined them, shouting that he would help finish the beast. As they fought, he quietly summoned another forbidden spell, concealing the cursed power under his disguise. A black arrow of energy shot from his hand, piercing straight through the goblin hero's heart. The creature collapsed to the ground, dead in an instant. The system chimed, announcing that Ye Lin's team had slain a level 33 goblin hero and earned a large amount of experience, along with a rare item, the Talisman of Symbiosis. Ye Lin's eyes gleamed slightly as he examined the drop, thinking to himself that items from monsters this strong were incredibly rare, making this reward all the more valuable. The other examiner got angry and pointed at Ye Lin, accusing him of stealing their kill. Ye Lin, still wearing the mask, simply smiled beneath it. After exchanging words with them, he dismissed the argument and referred to himself mockingly as the kind man. One examiner cursed in frustration, while the calmer one urged his teammate to drop it and focus on finishing the exam first. As they argued, Ye Lin quietly slipped away, removing the mask behind a nearby tree. He smirked to himself, confident that no one would find him now. The surrounding forest of Qingqing outskirts was dense, and the path to the final test teleportation gate was just ahead. He admired the illusion skin's effectiveness before pulling out the talisman he'd acquired. The inscription read, "Symbiotic Talisman, hoist with his own petard." Two awakeners whose levels are less than 10 apart can share all experience gained for 6 hours after activation. Single-use item. Ye Lin immediately recognized its potential. With this, he and Ji Lingyu could double their leveling speed. Soon after, he heard shouts for help in the distance. It was Lingyu, running frantically from a beast. Ye Lin appeared just in time to save him. Relieved, but startled, Lingyu asked about the goblin hero. Ye Lin explained that other examiners had taken care of it and told him not to move. Misunderstanding his intentions, Lingyu blushed awkwardly before being scolded and slapped back to his senses by Ye Lin. As the new beast charged toward them, Ye Lin activated his forbidden spell, the Lifespan Sword Skill. His blade glowed, slicing the level 13 Anubis soldier cleanly in half. The system confirmed the kill and triggered the symbiosis effect, granting both of them experience. Lingyu was amazed at the talisman's power, asking where Ye Lin had gotten it, but Ye Lin ignored him and pointed at more approaching monsters, ordering him to handle them himself. Nervously laughing, Lingyu tried to explain his earlier misunderstanding, but Ye Lin cut him off, telling him to stop following and to fight separately so they could both gain the maximum experience. Lingyu reluctantly agreed, admitting that he wasn't strong enough to handle many monsters alone. Not far away, a level 10 werewolf howled from the forest, surrounded by a few examinees preparing to strike. They were confident the monster was about to fall. Other students noticed Ye Lin rushing toward the werewolf and were shocked by his speed. In an instant, he struck with a single lightning attack, wiping out multiple werewolves at once. The onlookers were stunned, whispering to themselves about how powerful his spell was and recognizing him as the top-ranked Forbidden Spellcaster from the previous test. Some doubted his survival, thinking using forbidden spells recklessly would shorten his life, while others noticed how quickly he seemed to recover, suspecting something unusual about the equipment on his wrist. Ye Lin quickly concealed his regenerative ability, reminding himself that he had to keep his immortal body a secret. Soon, a massive level 20 Minotaur emerged from the forest, sending the nearby students into panic. They screamed and ran, knowing how deadly such a creature could be. Ye Lin, however, smiled faintly and drew his sword, determined to claim every monster for himself. In a blur of movement, he cut down the entire pack, experience points flowing in double thanks to the symbiotic talisman. Lingyu, far away, felt the shared experience surge, and thought to himself how no one else could level up as fast as Ye Lin. Back at the academy, Principal Gao watched the test through a magic screen. He sighed, regretting that such a talented student was a forbidden spellcaster, knowing that otherwise, Qingcheng Academy could have gained another prodigy. Another examiner beside him noted that Ye Lin had practically cleared the entire test area of monsters, reducing attacks on other candidates this year. Elsewhere, a group of students walked safely through the forest, chatting casually about how convenient it was that no monsters remained. They laughed, relieved that reaching the teleportation gate would now be easy. Meanwhile, Ye Lin reflected on his progress. With most monsters eliminated, he had already reached level 18 and noted that leveling up was becoming more difficult with each step. Approaching the glowing teleportation gate, He prepared himself for what lay ahead. As he stepped through, light surrounded him, and he looked around, quietly acknowledging that this was the start of the final examination zone. The exam area was crowded, filled with hundreds of students from Qingcheng. Some stood confidently in groups, while others looked tense and uneasy. Ye Lin glanced around, surprised by how many had made it this far. Ling Yu spotted him and rushed over, hugging him tightly in excitement, calling him his true boss. Embarrassed by the attention, Ye Lin quickly pushed him away, telling him to let go since everyone was watching. Ling Yu backed off but couldn't stop talking, proudly saying he had already reached level 15. Ye Lin stepped further back, telling him to keep some distance. Nearby, Zhu Nini was grumbling to herself about only leveling up by 2 after all the effort, but reassured herself that her skills would carry her through the final test. Soon, the voice of the chief examiner echoed across the field, calling everyone to attention. Lin Yuan, the chief examiner, welcomed all the test takers to the 886th final test. He explained that the forest earlier had only been an entry trial, and now the real examination would begin. He outlined the structure, a comprehensive assessment of 10 stages, each worth 10 marks, followed by a ring battle for an additional 10 marks per win. Only those scoring above 85 in the assessment could qualify for the battles, and a maximum total of 150 marks would decide the year's top scorer. He reminded everyone that the use of special items was strictly prohibited. Once finished, he ordered everyone to form groups of 10 and enter the testing rooms. The moment he had been preparing for had finally arrived, the test that would determine his future. He steeled himself, determined to carve his own path. In the back, a woman in white entered, apologizing for arriving late. She introduced herself as Su Chung Xin, a supervisor from the Supreme Academy. Lin Yuan assured her she was just in time. When she asked if there were any exceptional candidates this year, Lin Yuan mentioned Ye Lin, already level 18. She was surprised, saying that such a level qualified him for the Supreme Academy. Lin Yuan, however, said it was unfortunate because Ye Lin was a Forbidden Spellcaster. Su Chung Xin acknowledged that even Forbidden Spellcasters with high-class professions could be accepted, though she agreed it was a shame for Qingcheng to lose such potential. As the test began, screens displayed the results. Ye Lin easily passed through the early stages, scoring full marks. His attribute test drew attention when his strength registered at 480, agility at 270, and mental power at 1199. Examiners were baffled at how a Forbidden Spellcaster could have such high strength, speculating about equipment or unusual training. They waited eagerly for the next test to see how he attacked. When ordered to use his strongest skill, Ye Lin hesitated, deciding not to reveal his full power. Instead, he used a weaker version of his thunder spell. Yet when he cast it, lightning crashed violently, destroying the test dummy completely. The observers were stunned, noting that the dummy should have withstood any attack below level 25. As the lightning faded, whispers spread about how absurdly strong his forbidden spell was. Lin Yuan could only watch, astonished that Ye Lin was openly using forbidden magic in the exam. Moving swiftly, Ye Lin continued through the remaining stages, showing unmatched speed, strength, and control. One by one, the announcements came. Full marks for agility, power, sustained damage, and escapability, every single category. Each score flashed across the screens. Full marks, 10. Examiners murmured among themselves as they watched Ye Lin's performance. One of them commented that he was using forbidden spells like it was nothing, adding that it would be a miracle if he even lived to see 20. Another examiner turned to Lin Yuan and asked whether they should raise the difficulty of the final stage just for him. Lin Yuan then asked Su Chung Xin for his opinion, wondering if Ye Lin could be admitted into the Supreme Academy if he managed to score full marks. Su Chung Xin disagreed, saying that candidates like Luo Jun, Wang Zhenglin, Zhu Ji and Ji Ling were more suitable. He explained that a Forbidden Spellcaster's power came at the cost of their own life, and accepting Ye Lin would only waste the Academy's resources. Lin Yuan sighed, expressing quiet regret at the wasted potential. Outside, Ling Yu ran over excitedly after finishing his test, boasting that he had scored 96 marks. Ye Lin asked why he didn't get full marks, and Ling Yu replied with frustration that some points had been deducted during the combat assessment. Nearby, a few students discussed their own scores. Some were disappointed, while others were just relieved to qualify for good universities. Then, Lin Yuan announced the rankings. Ye Lin and Zhu Ji and I both received full marks, followed by Luo Jun with 98, Ji Lingyu with 96, and Wang Zhenglin with 95. Students scoring below 85 were asked to leave the test area, while those above that mark could choose to stay for the next stage. Zhu Ji and I suddenly stood up, protesting the results. She questioned why she was placed second when both she and Ye Lin had received perfect scores. Resentment flickered in her eyes as she wondered why she was ranked below him. Some female students supported her, shouting that it was unfair and accusing the system of discrimination. Lin Yuan silenced them and directed their attention to the large display. The replay showed Zhu Ji's impressive control and adaptability, earning the examiner's praise as a reflection of her father's talent. But then, the footage shifted to Ye Lin. He had defeated a level 25 demonic flame wolf in less than a second using just one skill. Lin Yuan acknowledged that the result now made sense. There was a clear difference in strength and execution. The crowd fell silent, their focus turning to Ye Lin and Zhu Ji and I as the atmosphere grew tense. The stage was now set for the ring battle to begin. No one said a word. Lin Yuan then announced that since there were no objections, all test takers with scores above 85 could rest for half an hour before preparing for the upcoming tournament. Outside the arena, the academy heads were in good spirits. One principal's friend mentioned that both the first and second place scorers, Ye Lin and Zhu Ji and I, were from Qingqing Academy, saying it looked like Principal Su's institution was about to make history. Principal Su laughed, adding that even the fourth-place scorer, Ji Lingyu, was from their academy. It was truly a lucky year. His friend, however, cautioned him not to celebrate too early, reminding him that the real challenge would begin with the tournament. Principal Su then asked if Luo Jun could possibly handle a level 18 Forbidden Spellcaster. His friend replied calmly that nothing was certain and anything could happen. Half an hour passed quickly. As the participants gathered, Zhu Ji and I walked by Ye Lin with her head held high, declaring confidently that she wouldn't lose to him in the tournament. Ye Lin simply thought to himself, wondering why she was so worked up. The examiner stepped forward and explained the tournament rules. Matches would be determined by lottery. Each pair would consist of test takers whose serial numbers added up to 104. Winning a match would grant 10 extra marks and promotion to the next round. The names appeared on the large screen. Ling Yu cheered from the sidelines, pointing out that he was number 24 while his boss was number 18. Ye Lin replied that his opponent would be number 86, and said he was heading to the ring. Ling Yu encouraged him to give it his all. In the arena, a short-haired girl named Bei stood ready with her sword drawn. Both participants displayed their professions and levels before the examiner signaled the start of the match. Ye Lin looked calm and advised her to surrender early. Angered, Bei refused, shouting that she wouldn't back down and demanded he take her seriously. Ye Lin sighed, admitting that anyone who had scored at least 85 marks wasn't ordinary, and her courage deserved recognition. As the match began, Ye Lin released a small attack, intending only to graze her. However, the lightning strike spread faster than expected, dazzling the audience and drawing gasps of amazement at his skill. The examiner quickly warned Ye Lin not to kill during the tournament, or he would be disqualified from the final test. Ye Lin nodded, saying he had no intention to kill, but needed to make her surrender the air. Bye Froze, trembling as via overtook her. Tears welled up as she dropped her sword and collapsed to the ground. Some students in the crowd began booing, calling Ye Lin heartless for making a girl cry, while others murmured in disbelief at how fear alone had defeated her. Ye Lin calmly approached and told her it would be best to surrender. The examiner then announced the result. Test taker number 18, Ye Lin, had won the first round, earning 10 additional marks. Ye Lin thought to himself that it really was a shame and decided to check out the other stages. Around the arena, other battles were already underway. Zhu Ji confidently told her opponent that he couldn't win against her, but he laughed mocking her for being a girl who dared to face him. The scene moved through several matches quickly. Ling Yu laughed while easily overpowering his opponent, saying he had never felt what it was like to crush someone purely through level difference. The examiner's voice echoed across the field, announcing the winners. Number 46, number 129, number 79, and number 12. Then came the declaration that the second round of the tournament would officially begin. Ye Lin's next opponent was a level 11 swordsman named Chun Chung, who looked overly confident. He claimed that while the battle might be difficult, he would still win. His details flashed on the screen, identifying him as a cloud-stepping swordsman. Ye Lin thought it was strange for someone at level 11 to act so sure of himself, and wondered if the guy had some kind of hidden skill. He unsheathed his weapon, reminding himself not to lower his guard. But before anything could happen, Chun Chung suddenly froze, dropped his sword, and shouted that he surrendered. Ye Lin was caught off guard, confused at the sudden forfeit, reminding Chun that he had just said he would win. Chun replied that he would, but there was no point risking it now. There would always be another chance for revenge. The examiner announced that test taker number 18, Ye Lin, had won the second round and earned another 10 marks. The spectators whispered among themselves, surprised that he had won without even fighting. Some thought it was unfairly easy, but others said it made sense. No one would risk their life battling a short-lived Forbidden Spellcaster. The third round started just as fast. Ye Lin's new opponent, already terrified, immediately surrendered the moment the match began. The examiner announced again that test taker number 18, Ye Lin, had won the third round with 10 marks added. Ye Lin stood there, speechless, thinking it was ridiculous that he didn't even get to do anything. Still, he accepted it. His reputation alone was enough to clear the rounds without a fight. Some kids shook their heads, surprised that Ye Lin had already won 3 rounds with just one forbidden skill. They questioned whether the final test was really this easy and wondered if he could actually get full marks without lifting a finger. Deciding to focus on the other matches, they turned their attention to the big screen. 2 strong contenders were highlighted next. Wang Zhengguang, a level 13 Iris sword user with incredible speed, and Luo Jun, a level 14 Dragon Shadow Spear fighter known for his dark, swift strikes. Wang Zhengguang smirked at Luo Jun, saying it looked like he was heading into the loser's bracket. Luo Jun just laughed and told him he wasn't capable enough to make that happen. Their battle started instantly, fast, sharp, and hard to follow. Blades flashed, and shadow strikes cut across the stage. The audience could barely track the movements. Some students exclaimed how terrifying it was to see 2 real powerhouses clash, admitting they wouldn't last a second against fighters like that. Su Chang Xin observed quietly from the side. Lin Yuan asked who she thought would win, and she answered simply, Luo Jun, just as she predicted. Luo Jun's spear pierced forward. Calling out his skill, he unleashed Shadow Loud Pierce, and Wang Zhengguang was sent flying back in pain. Meanwhile, Ye Lin's 5th round match was skipped. His opponent didn't even show up. The examiner announced it officially, and Ye Lin sighed, yawning to himself about how boring it was to win by default again. Then came a match that caught his attention, Ling Yu versus Zhu Ji Nini. Ye Lin leaned forward slightly, thinking this one might actually be interesting. In the ring, Zhu Ji Nini glared at Ling Yu, demanding to know what Ye Lin had done to make him follow him so loyally. Ling Yu proudly declared that Ye Lin was his boss, and that one day she'd understand who he really was. Annoyed, Nini snapped at him for being stubborn and immediately attacked, summoning a fiery explosion with Phoenix Flame Explosion. Ling Yu barely dodged, shocked by how fast her fire spells came out. Realizing she had the advantage as a ranged caster, he knew he couldn't afford to get hit. Nini kept firing bursts of flame, taunting him to see how long he could keep dodging. Out of stamina and options, Ling Yu decided to charge straight through, swinging his sword with slash to cut through the flames. Though he managed to block a few, his breathing grew heavy. Nini called him an idiot and told him to surrender, her hands already igniting again as she prepared her next spell, Red Flame Surge. Fire burst across the stage as Zhu Ji Nini shouted that anyone who underestimated her would pay the price. She called Ling Yu overconfident and sent another wave of flames forward. Watching from a distance, Ye Lin thought to himself that Lingyu wasn't strong enough to face someone like her. One of the examiners muttered that Lingyu was definitely going to lose, and the chief examiner ordered the staff to stand by, ready to intervene. Despite the danger, Lingyu stood up again, refusing to back down. Nini's eyes widened in disbelief as he charged straight through the flames. She yelled at him, asking if he'd lost his mind, but he kept going, slashing one last time before collapsing. Nini stumbled back in shock while Lingyu, burned and exhausted, told her this was a warning. She could provoke him, but never his boss. Ye Lin jumped up from the stands and sprinted over, shouting Lingyu's name. Medics rushed in as the examiner called for immediate medical aid. Ye Lin leapt past the barrier, kneeling beside his friend, saying he would use the yin-yang bangle to protect his heart. Nini, shaken, said she hadn't meant for it to go that far. Ye Lin told her he knew it wasn't her fault. The medic checked Lingyu and confirmed that he wasn't in any life-threatening danger, but his burns were severe and he needed to be taken to the hospital right away. Lingyu weakly grabbed Ye Lin's hand, telling him to give it his all. Ye Lin held his hand tightly and told him he had done well. The next round was announced, the quarterfinals. Zhuji Nini would face Lin Ling Lin. While Ye Lin was set to battle Luo Jun, the examiner stated that the top scorer of this year's final test would emerge from these four. In the stands, the principals debated. Principal Su's friend asked if Luo Jun would win, and Principal Su confidently replied yes, praising Luo Jun as a genius from Yutsai Academy. Another principal disagreed, saying that a level 18 Forbidden Spellcaster was too much for anyone to handle. They continued to argue, one claiming Ye Lin couldn't possibly use forbidden spells continuously without risking his life, the other insisting Luo Jun wouldn't last even a single spell. The conversation ended when another official told them to stop bickering, as the next round was about to begin. Back on the stage, Ye Lin cracked his knuckles and took a deep breath, ready for the real fight to start. Luo Jun entered the ring with his spear glowing, full of confidence. The screen displayed his information: Luo Jun, Shadow Dragon Spear, level 14. He told Ye Lin that he finally had the chance to fight him, calling him his only true rival. As long as he defeated Ye Lin, he would be the year's top scorer. Ye Lin smiled slightly and replied calmly. The bell rang, signaling the start of the match. Luo Jun charged forward immediately, shouting for Ye Lin to kneel and beg. Ye Lin drew his sword, but didn't use magic, deciding not to rely on forbidden spells. He wanted to see how many strikes Luo Jun could withstand from his lifespan sword skill. Luo Jun swung his spear, sending shadows flying, but Ye Lin dodged and countered at close range. Spectators were shocked to see a forbidden spellcaster skilled in sword combat. Ye Lin's blade glowed dark as he announced his move, Lifespan Sword Skill, demonstrating the power of a forbidden spellcaster's sword technique. Luo Jun blocked, but was forced back, gritting his teeth. The crowd erupted in disbelief, wondering why Ye Lin wasn't casting any spells. Some speculated that his sword skill itself was a forbidden spell. One of the principals confirmed it, explaining that the lifespan sword skill consumed the user's lifespan to make each strike stronger than the last. The other principal questioned how many swings Ye Lin could endure and whether winning was worth sacrificing his life. The debate continued between them, one insisting that Luo Jun was losing, while the other told him not to celebrate too soon. Back in the fight, Ye Lin pressed forward relentlessly, asking Luo Jun if he was ready to surrender. Realizing he was at a disadvantage, Luo Jun decided to take a risk. He pulled out a talisman and activated Heavy Shadow Strike, releasing dark energy that forced Ye Lin back. The impact hurt Ye Lin badly, and he immediately sensed that something was wrong. Luo Jun laughed, revealing that Ye Lin wasn't the only one capable of using forbidden spells. Ye Lin recognized it as a forbidden spell talisman. Luo Jun then unleashed another attack, Forbidden Spell Shadow Dragon Meteor, sending a massive shadow dragon crashing down. The attack struck Ye Lin in the chest, blood spraying as he stumbled back. Luo Jun mocked him, saying he wouldn't live much longer and should just die. The crowd believed the fight was over, thinking Luo Jun had won. One of the examiners, shocked, remarked that Luo Jun had actually used a forbidden spell talisman, which severely damaged the user's body. Another examinee added that Yutsai Academy's principal had allowed him to use it just to secure the title of top scorer. The examiner spoke grimly, saying that only winning would secure a future. But it was a pity. Examinee Ye Lin's life was in danger. He immediately shouted for medics. Principal Gao, furious, turned to Principal Su. He shouted, calling him an old dog and accusing him of letting his student use a forbidden spell talisman just to win. He demanded to know if Su had any conscience left, calling him shameless. Principal Su stayed calm, replying that Luo Jun had agreed to use it himself. He said that a loss was still a loss, no matter what Gao thought, and declared that this year's top scorer would belong to Yutsai Academy. Zhugan looked down, sadness in her eyes. She whispered to herself that she never expected Luo Jun to use a forbidden spell talisman to win. Even she wouldn't have been able to dodge that attack. She wondered if Ye Lin really died and admitted she felt strangely sad. If he had just listened to her advice, things might have been different. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, telling her not to be so anxious. The match wasn't over yet. On the stage, Luo Jun stepped closer to the fallen Ye Lin, spears still glowing. He sneered, saying that even if Ye Lin was level 18, he was still losing. But Ye Lin slowly stood back up, blood dripping, the hole in his chest closing before everyone's eyes. He replied coldly, asking who said he had lost. Luo Jun's eyes went wide in disbelief, trembling as he stammered that Ye Lin's heart had been pierced. He shouldn't still be alive. Ye Lin answered calmly, saying that people must have forgotten how terrifying forbidden spellcasters were. No one could kill one. They could only die by their own spells. His body began to glow faintly as he whispered the words of another forbidden spell, Undying. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One of the kids shouted that he was still alive, another asking if forbidden spellcasters were truly that terrifying, surviving even after a fatal wound. An examiner shouted in shock that the Undying spell had long been considered lost, yet Ye Lin had mastered it. Another examiner added that if Ye Lin weren't a forbidden spellcaster, he would still be considered a genius. He was calmly using his lifespan to survive and his equipment to heal, a terrifying mix of skill and composure. Ye Lin gripped his sword tightly, eyes glowing. He told Luo Jun that it was his turn now. The sky darkened as clouds spiraled above the arena. Ye Lin murmured the next incantation, Forbidden Spell, World-Destroying Thunder. Luo Jun froze, panic breaking across his face. He screamed that it was impossible as lightning crashed down around him. The crowd erupted in chaos. A kid shouted in shock, unable to believe what he was seeing. The examiner raised his voice above the roaring thunder, announcing the result. Ye Lin wins. Medics rushed to the ring. Luo Jun lay on the ground, coughing weakly. Ye Lin turned his gaze toward the stands, where Principal Gao and Principal Su's friend watched silently. Su's friend smirked faintly and said, "We're now set." Ye Lin coughed, pretending to be hurt from the forbidden spell's backlash. Principal Gao looked tense, while Su's friend muttered angrily that Ye Lin's forbidden spell had backfired. Gao sighed to himself, realizing that using such a strong spell must have damaged Ye Lin's internal organs. Ye Lin forced himself to stand slowly, acting weaker than he actually was. He thought to himself that he had to sell the act. If anyone suspected him, it would only bring trouble. From the stands, Principal Su shouted that he wanted to file a report, accusing Qing City Academy's Ye Lin of attempted murder for using such a powerful forbidden spell against a level 14 job changer. Principal Gao's face turned red with anger. He snapped back, asking if Su had any dignity and reminding him who started first. Some examiners agreed with Gao, saying that Yutsai Academy was the one crossing the line. Su glared at him and yelled that this wasn't over, vowing to report him to the Ministry of Education. Ye Lin left the ring, feeling real pain in his chest this time. The forbidden spell's recoil had taken its toll. He thought to himself that this exam was more tiring than fighting Ken-san, and that something troublesome was still waiting ahead. In the next ring, Zhugan stood ready but looked conflicted. She offered to wait until Ye Lin recovered, saying she didn't want to take advantage of him. Ye Lin shook his head and told her there was no need. Half an hour later, the arena was loud again. The examiner stepped up, announcing that the long-awaited final round was about to begin, the match that would decide this year's top scorer. Ye Lin and Nini faced each other. She prepared her fire spells, determined not to take any chances after seeing what happened with Luo Jun. She knew one mistake could end it. Ye Lin thought about which spell to use. He didn't want to seriously hurt her. If he did, Zhuge Qianxing wouldn't let him off easily. It was a headache he didn't need. Nini struck first, fire bursting from her hands as she shouted her spell. Flames surged across the ring. She told herself that no matter how strong Ye Lin was, she had to win this. Nini attacked first, flames bursting across the field. Ye Lin dodged calmly, deciding to wait until she ran out of mana rather than counter with full force. His movements were precise and efficient, giving no openings while keeping the fight under control. The spectators began whispering, questioning why he was only dodging. Some thought he was too tired to use the thunder spell again. Others believed he felt pity for Nini, or that he might even be holding back because of her family's influence. Their comments only fueled Nini's anger, and her fire magic became increasingly unstable. She shouted at Ye Lin, demanding to know if he was mocking her, while he stayed silent, continuing to dodge with steady focus. Ye Lin slipped past another blast with controlled movements, questioning the limit of what counted as fair defense. Nini erupted into a furious counterattack, channeling a red flame surge that raised walls of fire across the ring and sealed off escape routes. The heat and pressure built quickly. Ye Lin read the rhythm of her casting and accelerated, forcing her spells to overreach. He moved so fast that his sword never landed a killing blow, only a light, non-lethal tap to break her balance and ruin her timing. Nini reacted with raw anger, shouting and lashing out more wildly. As the fight escalated, she concentrated her power into a homing fire tornado. Ye Lin recognized the tracking pattern and spun along the tornado's edge, using small, efficient steps to stay safe while forcing the spell to waste mana and strength. The tornado began to lose coherence as its energy collapsed inward. Exhaustion showed in Nini's breathing. Her cast grew sloppy and the flames dimmed into smoke. Examiners and medics moved to the ring's edge, prepared to intervene the moment the duel crossed a safety line. Ye Lin kept his distance, ending the confrontation decisively without causing permanent harm, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. Ye Lin noticed the incoming flames closing in fast and reacted instantly. He pulled Nini away from the blast, his grip firm and controlled. Channeling his energy, he activated a forbidden spell. Dark energy rose from beneath the stage, forming a solid, shadowy barrier known as the Wailing Wall. The fire collided against it but failed to penetrate, dispersing harmlessly into smoke and sparks. The crowd was left in awe, unable to believe a student could perform such an advanced spell. Ye Lin, though slightly drained, stayed composed and released Nini once the danger had passed. The wall faded slowly, leaving the ring scorched but stable. Nini, shaken and speechless, stared at him in disbelief. She had seen countless spells before, but nothing like this. The crowd whispered, some joking about how close the two had stood together, others admiring Ye Lin's control and restraint. Once the match resumed, Ye Lin ended it cleanly, disarming Nini with a swift motion that sent her tumbling off the ring without injury. The audience went silent for a moment before erupting into cheers as the examiner declared Ye Lin the winner and the top scorer of the final exams. Amid the celebration, Ye Lin calmly stated his intention to join the Supreme Academy. The crowd cheered even louder, but their excitement faded when Sucheng Xin stepped forward, explaining that Forbidden Spellcasters were not accepted, their lifespan too short to be considered worth training. Ye Lin accepted the verdict without protest, maintaining his composure. The audience murmured, some expressing pity, others respect for his calm response. Then, as the tension hung in the air, Zhuge Chongqing stepped out and interrupted, saying he might have already found a solution to the problem that made everyone doubt Ye Lin's future. Sucheng Xin questioned Zhuge Chongqing's statement, unsure what he meant. Zhuge calmly explained that Ye Lin was his disciple and that he had discovered a new method to lessen the damage Forbidden Spellcasters suffer when casting their spells. He offered to let them examine Ye Lin's body as proof. The examiners and Principal Gao were skeptical, asking if what Zhuge claimed was true. Su Cheng Xian pressed further, pointing out that while Zhuge was known for his skill in astrology, he was no expert on job changers. She argued that even if his claim worked temporarily, there was no guarantee Ye Lin would live beyond 25, and questioned if Zhuge would take responsibility for any wasted resources. Zhuge tried to reason with her, asking her not to destroy a young genius's future. But Su Cheng Xian refused to let emotions sway her decision, insisting the Supreme Academy could not accept a forbidden spellcaster. The crowd murmured, gossiping about a possible connection between Zhuge and Su Cheng Xian. Some students complained that she was being too strict and that a simple checkup on Ye Lin could have proven his condition safely. Ye Lin stepped in, calmly telling his master to let it go. He said it didn't matter if he couldn't enter the Supreme Academy and that he held no resentment. It was only an academy, after all. Before Zhuge could respond, a student from the Supreme Academy jumped down from the stands, attacking Ye Lin without warning. Ye Lin quickly dodged the strike, surprised by the sudden assault. The attacker introduced himself arrogantly as Yin Guanluo, a first-year student of the Supreme Academy, mocking Ye Lin for being a forbidden spellcaster and claiming that such people were destined to die young. Su Cheng Xian intervened sharply, warning Yin Guanluo to stop or face disciplinary action. Yin only smirked, pretending it was just a greeting and laughing off his aggression. After the brief skirmish, the examiners and Principal Gao rushed to Ye Lin's side, asking if he was injured. Ye Lin assured them he was fine, standing composed despite the hostility directed at him. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this manhwa. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you either in a new manhwa recap or in the next episode of this one. Until then, take care and bye-bye.